Welcome to the Save Room, your safe haven for gaming news and discussion, but not today, fucker. Today is about Halloween horror movies. Well, not the Halloween movies, but movies that you would watch around Halloween that are horror movies. Unless you watch something that isn't a horror movie, that's also a Halloween movie. Because Halloween is like an orbit.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It's like people try to fly by and be like, I can't wait for Thanksgiving. No, you get sucked into it. You dumb idiot. You're in a pumpkin now. And I love that holiday, god damn it.
That pumpkin density is very strong.
Very strong. I love Halloween. Do you love Halloween?
I fucking love. I'm horny for Halloween.
Excuse me?
Horny for Halloween.
Okay, he's horny for... He has erections for Halloween.
I'm not willing to let go of it.
Guy?
You know? Like a past love, I'm still holding on to Halloween. Up to this day, I'm still watching horror movies. It's November 4th.
We already have some dissension in the chat currently. The audio podcast won't understand. We are streaming this podcast. Lovable Dingo is saying that Halloween horror movies in November. We had to give a post-mortem, and we didn't find a good time to do it, so we were just like, let's just bogart one of the stream days to do like a recording.
That's my idea.
Because we got weekend ideas. The Royal We.
No, this was a me idea.
That's true.
I'll take full credit on this one. I think there is a stopping point in November where the Halloween movies have to stop and you have to transition.
24th?
Yeah, basically it's Thanksgiving and you transition into like more like autumnal or like kind of holiday Christmas movies at that point.
What's a good Thanksgiving movie?
Oh god, I hate this conversation because like we can never land on a thing, but Harry Potter movies feel like Thanksgiving movies to me. Most of every Christmas movie basically because it captures that like I don't know, holiday spirit, you know.
I'll give it to you. I won't take it from you.
Okay.
Because I don't know. I guess I've never watched Harry Potter toward Thanksgiving.
It's just because of the specials that they used to roll on like ABC.
Yeah.
ABC Family, rather. You got to be very distinct on that one. Where they would play like all the Harry Potter movies in succession.
What do you think ABC stands for? Nazism?
Ableist, bigoted cucks.
I knew it.
ABC Family.
Take that, ABC. This is the Takedown Podcast. Thank you. Welcome to the Save Room, where we're going to take down ABC. NBC is next. We're coming for you, peacocks. So, like you said, I watch a bunch of movies. I try to do the one a day situation, and there was two problems with that. One, I would fall asleep during some of these movies because I would start it at midnight thinking like, oh yeah, I could stay up until 2 a.m. No, it didn't happen some days. And so I would have to like extend it to the next day and be like, I guess it counts for 2. And then I threw in some TV shows in there because Bly Manor came out at the beginning of the month and I was not going to fuck up and not watch it.
Yeah, that was like first week of October. And like you have to start the month strong with something like that. And that, gotta say, great contender for like one of the best things I watched all month.
Yeah, better than Hill House. I just wanted to wake him up.
No, not at all. Because I went back and rewatched
not at all.
Haunting of Hill House afterwards. And I mean, they're different beasts, obviously.
Yeah,
right?
very different.
Different ways of approaching their horror and their character development and everything. Beautiful stories through and through. I liked Bly Manor a lot. I like the cast. I like Danny's story. What's her name? Victoria Pedretti?
Sure,
that actress in that role. She killed that role from like start of season to end of season.
Isn't there a Pedretti from Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
A lot of
Pedrettis in New York.
A lot of Pedrettis.
Yeah.
You open up a phone book, it's all Pedri.
But I liked it. It was a lot less like kind of in your face visual horror like Hill House was, and a lot more like just emotional gut wrenching stuff.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Bly Manor is more atmospheric than it is like legitimately scary, and it's very like it makes it known that the point of the series isn't to just scare you for like 9 episodes. No, it's a story about loss and love and memory and how we kind of get stuck in loops, much like a ghost with our memories. I thought that was really cool, and I think some themes carry over from Hill House, but it very much was about how we make a ghost out of our own love sometimes, right? And I was really into it. I think it had a little bit more of an emotional impact on me than the first one, because the first one's about a family and the second one's more about the relationships that we make, you know. So that I could see a distinct difference there. I like that because there was family members in the second season, but it didn't just focus on them as the core cast principals. It was like, oh, here's the groundskeeper and here's the what's the French word for nanny that they use?
Au pair.
Au pair. Yeah. The whole fucking series. Yeah, so that was great. I loved Bly Manor, actually. I really appreciate that.
I think the cast is easier to root for in Bly Manor because they all have their own demons and things they're struggling with and things they're trying to resolve.
Right.
Whereas Hill House is like half that family you don't root for. Half those characters are assholes. And then, I mean, a lot of it obviously is centralized around like the death of Elle and all of that. And I love kind of how the characters pivot around that and kind of come to grips with a lot of things or kind of have a lot of conflict resolution with each other.
Yeah.
But like, you know, what's his name? Steve's still an asshole at the end of the day. Like, I don't care like what arc he went through.
That's the author, right?
Yeah, I still really didn't enjoy his character.
No, I didn't either. And I noticed the actor didn't come back for this second series because they did the American Horror Story where a bunch of actors carried over. Not him. And not Timothy Dalton. Wait, am I thinking, is that right? Timothy Dalton? No. Isn't that a Bond?
Yes.
Okay, so who is the dad?
Oh, I don't remember.
You remember how it was like two different actors for the same... Okay, yeah. Old man dad did
old
not
man,
come back.
Young man.
Young man, old man. But yeah, I like that they brought back Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Pedretti.
It's different because like, you can't even call them seasons, right? Because we talk about how they're just like anthology series unto themselves. Hill House is very like just every other moment I feel like it's trying to do something grotesque or visually like startling, whereas some of the more startling stuff is like the emotional resonance or, you know, haunting stuff that happened with the main character where it's like that loss of love and how it kind of follows you and haunts you. Like I can relate to that a lot. It's very deep and I don't know.
I'm haunted by my memories, so I actually very much connected with Bly Manor. I think even more than I can't even call it season 1. They're different seasons, right? Speaking of TV shows, my friends, and this counts as horror. I think it does. Lovecraft Country on HBO. Not sure if all of HBO is HBO Max now. I don't know.
Never know.
I have no idea. I know you didn't watch it yet, but it is. I think it's phenomenal. First of all, like top shelf. Fucking love the actors in it. Love the setting, and I love the fact that every episode feels like a new genre, but there's a connective tissue with the storylines where it's like the show is tonally the same throughout, but it feels like one episode is a ghost story, another episode is almost an Indiana Jones adventure. It's so interesting how, and then another, obviously, I think the first episode is closer to like a monster movie. I really, really fucking love that series. I don't know if it landed its ending necessarily, and I think a lot of people mention that where it's like, the threads didn't come together for the finale, but it's very obvious that they're setting up something, you know, a bigger universe to continue doing. Like, I hope we have at least like 3 seasons out of this show, because I think there's a lot of interesting lore and interesting shit to kind of dredge up, and its portrayal of like 1950s racism, like it's not, the scary thing is it's not one of those things that feels like, oh, that's the distant past, that doesn't happen today, and it's just like, nah. No, it's very much
right now.
It's a modern reflection. And actually some of the tensest, scariest parts of the show are when the antagonists are just bigots coming for our main characters. Like I remember feeling like fucking major anxiety in my chest, and like there's this one episode where this town sheriff basically chases the characters across a county line, and he says that like, oh, basically if you're in this county after dark, I can gun you down. And so he's slowly like following them in his car, like making sure that they go across the line, and then starts like chasing them as soon as like the sun starts like going down. It's the most anxiety inducing shit, dude. That series is great. You need to watch that. Sundown Towns. That's what it's called. Yeah.
Interesting. I think it's fascinating how HBO kind of hit like 2 series back to back that like kind of really encapsulate that same feel of racism and racial tension between like HBO's Watchmen and then Lovecraft County, or is it Country? Yeah. It's like they really just kind of caught the same beat, but did 2 different things with it. I have no sense or idea of what that series is about, but like every week I hear would see people tweeting about it and just kind of raving about like what was going on and how it was probably the most intense thing I had seen all week.
Does that make you not want to watch it?
Not at all. No, it's
like when people are like chomp down on something like that's of the moment.
It's not a deterrent in most cases, but sometimes it has been, where it's like when people overhype a thing, I kind of want to meet it on my own terms. Yeah. What's like the elevator pitch for it, if you could kind of summarize what it is about? I know it's not about any one thing, but
gotcha. Well, hang on, let me look up some of the shit in this, because I want to make sure I get the actors' names right. Grave Gamer in the chat saying that it's such amazing stories to tell from the Black American perspective, and I think that's important to have that like actually in big budget drama television to be able to get people to go like, oh wait, what happened in Tulsa? No, yeah, these things happen, right? Let me see. Okay, so the main character is a guy coming back from the war. I think the Korean War at that time, if it's the 50s, right? Or 60s, I think it is. It is Atticus, and he comes back because his father goes missing, essentially. God, it's been a while since I saw the first episode, actually. This is what sucks about serialized television, because you're like, yeah, the first episode, which I watched 2 months ago. Yeah. Like, holy shit.
Which is why I tend to do the like a binge approach about it, where like I don't like sometimes having to watch week after week. I like to kind of just like consume it all at once.
Yeah, like, so Atticus, his character, his dad has some sort of history, and like he comes back after his dad goes missing to figure out like what's the fucking haps, essentially. And he ends up in this situation where it's like his family legacy is kind of intertwined with this, bigger than life almost. Well, there's no better word for it than Lovecraftian sort of situations, like a cult that wants immortality is in there. Like a lot of these like high concept, like, science fiction things, but it's very much grounded in like, Americana, essentially. Okay. Think like a period piece version of, what is that one called by American Gods, right?
Yeah, Neil Gaiman's.
Yeah, Neil Gaiman's American Gods. Kind of like that.
Interesting.
Here, Grave Gamer's got a more perfect one. Lovecraft Country is a horror story that subverts the racism that drives Lovecraft's xenophobia, and in turn, horrors of his stories into a wonderful plot device that tells the story of Black American plight in the 50s.
Well said.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate you. I really, really enjoy that series, and I think you should watch it.
Yeah.
I think you should watch it before the year's out.
For sure. It's very high on my watch list. If I don't watch it, this week, then hopefully next week I'll give it a spool.
Now that you're free of movies.
Now that I'm free of movies.
Speaking of movies.
No, not yet. I do want to say...
No, not yet.
Because you talked all about this TV you watched. I want to say I did dip back into Buffy for October, because that's a very October fall show for me. I haven't rewatched it from start to finish in a very long time. It's actually been like 8 years. But every time I go back to it, it's just, there's such a charm to going back to like Sunnydale and hanging out with those characters and their humble beginnings and kind of seeing them grow together, and just the situations that like happen day to day in the Hellmouth, because that's just what happens. One day you show up and you might have hyenas on campus, or the next day your
that's a great episode. I don't give a fuck.
Mantis,
I don't give a fuck what anybody says. The hyena episode's really good.
I mean, there's some wacky ones. It definitely starts with very kind of like all over the place monster of the weeks, but it works as it kind of rolls towards a heavier plot for the characters. I love it. My hope is amazing to eventually, watch through it all and then give Angel a once through, because I've never seen Angel all the way through.
You should. Yeah. You should, because I always say the last season of Angel is better than both series put together.
Yeah, I've heard that a few times.
I say it all the time because it's absolutely true. Buffy's one of those shows where I think people kind of conflate it with well, first of all, when you say Buffy, they think of like the same thing every time, which is it's corny, campy, throwaway TV that doesn't have much depth to it. When actually Buffy had a lot of like landmark moments and character moments and kind of gravity to it that define TV. And we just don't give it credit because, again, anything that's genre gets kind of looked over, even though people fucking flood to genre television, right? Every time I mention like Buffy, they only think of like, oh, the cheerleader in high school. And I'm like, yeah, that's 3 seasons of a 7-season fucking brilliant arc. Okay? One of my favorite shows of all time.
Yeah. It's the series that got the mustard out. Like, you got to give it credit for a lot of things it did. I think there's like a lot of iconic ones that I always think back to, like, Hush, a few others outside of that one, but it's hard to not like go back to the like beginnings and kind of trudge through it a little bit, because it is fun camp, but it does build on itself. The characters, their relationships build very heavily, and there's a tragedy to like almost everybody, which is really fascinating to watch over time. So,
and good point in the chat here. 8 seasons if you consider the comics. Actually, they went up to 12 seasons. There's 12 seasons if you count the comics. and they are still part of the same fabric for some reason. Season 8 gets crazy.
Yeah, I had read some of that graphic novel. I didn't finish it, but I read the first one. I think you got it for me.
Yeah, and then they rebooted it. They fucking rebooted it as a comic, but kept the same like characters and the way that they look.
Yeah,
it's a collision of worlds. It's great. I love it.
I want to ask you something before we kind of start this crazy Halloween bone jamboree. I think everybody has like a different kind of mindset for what they look for in horror, the sort of movies and media that they're attracted to. I guess kind of as a starter question, like what's the sort of main sort of horror film that you gravitate towards? Because like for me, it's a lot of times it's like the slasher movie, home invasion, supernatural stuff, obviously. And then there's some things I usually kind of just stay away from just because I'm like, it doesn't resonate with me. In a similar way, because I think for me, like for horror to be effective in a lot of ways, it's stuff that I would want to be scared of or can actually like imagine myself in those situations. Because otherwise it's just like intense film watching, you know? Because like a lot of horror movies obviously don't scare me because I'm like, well, I'm never going to be in that situation. I could respect, you know, the presentation, all of it, and love it for what it is, but I think at the end of the day, it's not the sort of stuff that like kind of creeps me out or like.
Right. For some reason, when you mentioned like intense film watching, I'm just like, yeah, man, like watching a Marvel movie on your phone in the bathtub with a blender on the edge.
Yeah. Pretty scary.
You're just like, oh shit, what's gonna happen to those Avengers? Yeah. What kind of horror do I gravitate to? That's a good question. I mean, I think the type of horror that like the subgenre that's gotten me into like a lot of different horrors, like the zombie movies, or disaster horror is like a good way to put it, because I feel like a lot of zombie movies can fall into disaster horror,
like end of the world, apocalypse sort of stuff.
Apocalyptic horror is the kind of shit that I like, where it's just like I feel like zombie movies in particular, you can tell stories where the zombies aren't like the thing, they're not the point, we don't even need to delve into like what made them. They're more of like what I like to call plot grease, and the actual meat of the story is the characters. Now that you see people where their day-to-day lives are ripped asunder, they're not worrying about, you know, bills, they're not worrying about getting to work on time or missing a meeting, you see who the fuck they really are. Cats backed into a corner. Do they slash or do they huddle, basically? And I like those kind of stories where it's like, and then I find myself attracted to horror where it's like, let's see who you really are when you're put into a situation that's just beyond the pale, right?
I think some like zombie like mediums get it right. I think Walking Dead on a long enough timeline, in terms of the comics, obviously nailed a lot of those points of like the human element gone wrong, or like, you know,
the show is borderline nihilistic.
Yeah,
like unfun, unsurprising, basically. Like it's gotten to the point where it killing like major characters is just not a surprising thing. In fact, it's the only interesting thing that happens in that series anymore. That's I feel like Walking Dead just like walked away from like what the source material, what made it so effective, I think. But yeah, you know, I see what you're saying, but
it definitely became more about like the shock value over time, and then I guess as you get like Negan and other characters in, where it's like almost like torture porn in some ways. But like in the early days, the human element is what's so fascinating. Yeah, it's cool to see zombie movies or these kind of horror disaster films, as you put them, kind of tackle it, because at the end of the day, we are people in these situations that would have to deal with them. You know, we're not reduced to nothing because we're in a horrific situation. It's like, who are we in those moments? How do we prevail? How do we care for the people around us, or how do we abandon them to save ourselves? You know, it's interesting.
Well, very easily. How you just go like, hey, look over there. Then you fucking run.
Hey, look, see ya.
Hey, look over there, brick. And then you're done. So the kind of horror that I like, just give you like a wide swath, because this actually was a question that I had in my mind for you, which is like, what guided your decision making for like the movies that you watched this month? And for me, I wanted to A, watch new things that I've never seen before, and B, watch things that I haven't seen in a very long time to see if it still holds up. I didn't do the thing where I was going through like a lot of people do, which is fine, and I probably plan on doing this next year, is go through a greatest hits of your favorites. Like we have a friend that would always watch like Halloween Town or Hocus Pocus around Halloween. For me, those pillar films are like the original Dawn of the Dead, Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, Shaun of the Dead, Return of the Living Dead. Just put of the dead at the end.
A lot of dead.
Yeah, a lot of dead. But yeah, that kind of stuff. But for me, that's what kind of guided me this time, which is like, I've never seen this before. I've heard about it, but let's see if it's actually good. What was your like pick and pool to like pick your movies?
I think I actually had the same mindset because typically year over year, I tend to watch things that I'm familiar with, or like, you know, I have my once a year rewatch of like Scream or Cabin in the Woods or movies that are kind of just like comfort food to me. Like I've seen them 100 times, but like it just, the month doesn't feel right without it, which I think Buffy became that for me, where I was like, okay, this is going to be my comfort food for the month.
For sure.
But I'm going to experiment and see new things. And a lot of my choices this month, I mean, I had a handful of rewatches just because it was like late and I wanted to watch something scary, but I didn't want to like dive into something new. A lot of it was based off of like things that either you had suggested or like cult movies that I had just never seen before that I had always wanted to check out.
Gotcha.
So kind of, you know, a mix of everything.
Well, let's pull up the skirt. How about it?
All right.
Let's get into some
spooky
of this,
down there.
right?
Haven't shaved in a while.
I can smell it. I'm excited. Let's see
Jesus
here.
Christ,
yeah, that's the what if drama, right? Or no, what are you supposed to say? And what or so what? When somebody says something egregious or fucking out of the lamb, somebody's supposed to go like, yes, and. That's what it was. That's what it was. Sorry, yes, and. The yes, and is supposed to top the last statement. That is the improv circle, basically. So we landed on I can smell it.
I'm a learned woman. I didn't spend too much time in improv circles. Just getting high with them.
Just getting high with them? Gotcha. All right. So I kicked off the month with the weirdest shit. The remake. No, sorry, it's a reboot. It is a reboot. The reboot of Child's Play that came out in 2019 that's starring Aubrey Plaza, who... Okay, I'm like one of the odd men out that usually I don't really care about Aubrey Plaza, whereas other people are like, oh my god, she's fantastic and funny and blah 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 blah. I really liked her in this movie. I was like, oh shit, like she plays like the cool single mom, and like it's such a relatable thing because I'm just like I feel like I know this character instantly, right? And it has a whole cast of like, oh, I know that guy, like the dude from Atlanta shows up in the movie.
Yeah, Paperboy.
Paperboy shows up playing a cop. Which is so funny because like you go from one role, it's like, nah, you're not a cop in this one at all.
No, not at all.
And what's funny to me in that movie is that it's a horror comedy that leans in the comedy a little bit more, right? Like ridiculous situations, and it hangs on this premise that like honestly, like if you pitch me in an elevator like, hey, what if we reboot Chucky, but instead of him being like a serial killer's ghost turned into a doll, it is just like an Alexa AI gone nuts. I would be like, you can get the fuck out of here, or you can sell that to
like,
Netflix.
We've done that idea too many times.
Yeah, I'd be like, I feel like we've done this, or even if we haven't, I hate it. But this movie plays it up so well, and Mark Hamill plays Chucky in this one. But the only disappointing part is that he doesn't go for his like gravelly, hard, like, hey there, you know, like his Joker thing. In this movie, he's innocent because like the doll is like learning, and like the reason it kills is because it can't tell that that's bad. It has like no inhibitor in its head to tell him like, oh yeah, it's a bad thing to murder people and hurt people. So he ends up doing the like, Andy, why am I in a closet, Andy? Like with a fucking cat tail sticking out of his hand or something. It's nuts, but I enjoyed the movie. Yeah. You watched it too, right?
I did watch it, and I'm not a fan of the Chucky movies.
I kind of am.
Yeah, I mean, I watched them growing up. They were fine. I think that brand of like horror meets comedy, sometimes it doesn't always land with me. I think a lot of what this movie, you know, worked pretty well. Like that. Yeah. This is for Tupac moment. Beautiful. Landed. Had a lot of good laughs. I mean, you could say that like maybe that interpretation of Chucky, the doll itself. What's the name of the doll again? I forget.
It's the Buck.
Yeah.
In the original, it had a different name. It was like Playmate something. I fucking forget. Yeah. You're right. It has a name though.
It's been a long month. We're gonna lose names and titles and things here and there, but
right.
Yeah, it could have gone harder, but I think a lot of it was like adapting over time to its owner. So there was kind of this like naivety.
I think it was a buddy doll.
It was a buddy doll.
It was a buddy. The original was Good Guy. Thank you, Make Monsters in the chat. It was a Good Guy doll, and then these are buddy dolls with an I at the end because it's
clever.
It's a future. Yeah, it's a funny movie.
But I mean, it's just it took on a lot of the characteristics of its owner, very sweet, very naive, and I think over time it's like you don't get like the, I guess, vocal thread of it. It's more of like what he's doing.
Yeah.
And I would be honest, the second I saw that thing like trying to kill my cat or, you know, kill my friends, I'd fucking boot it. Like, I'd get rid of it. I don't understand why they kept that doll in the house for as long as they did.
What happened to
Discourse?
Makes no
sense.
Huh?
No.
How we can't talk to people
with murderous
that we disagree
AI.
with? No. We got to boot them out of our house when they kill our cat. We don't go, hey, man, what was it about that cat you wanted to murder? Turns out he was trying to protect Andy because he hated that cat. And you know what? That's a good guy.
That was good. I liked it. It was definitely like one of the more kind of lukewarm movies that I watched this season, where I'm like, oh yeah, good, not great.
I don't know why I like it so much. It just works for me.
I think it's because it's like,
but I can see it not working for a lot of people.
It's a new spin on an old thing.
Yeah,
you know,
and it doesn't do exactly what the old one did. Yeah, or it doesn't like follow the beats or tone of the original, which is interesting because the movies were straight horror. 1, 2, and 3, Child's Play are straight horror with some jokes here and there, but then it turned into like, Chucky's kind of a funny character, I guess. Let's give him a bride or some shit.
Yeah.
And then it takes this crazy pivot that I actually do appreciate, but only works for one movie called Bride of Chucky. It just sucks elsewise. They made like 2 sequels. Seed of Chucky, garbage.
Oh yeah, they did make 2 sequels. What the fuck?
Yeah.
Why the fuck?
Because Bride of Chucky actually like landed for people. They're like, we filmed it for $500,000 and it fucking made back like $50 million. Let's make 3 of these a year. Yeah, it didn't work. But there's a movie that we both watched right around the same time too, I think. Or no, you'd watched it before me, but you recommended it.
Yeah, this was actually like the first movie that I had watched this month.
Okay.
The Invisible Man.
2020.
Yeah. Starring Elizabeth Moss. Very interesting, tense take on that idea.
Yeah.
Kind of the idea of like somebody who's being just like stalked and just harassed by like somebody who just won't let them go, and like just the idea of this person, her ex-partner, what's his name, Andre something, whatever, using like his technology to basically like Adrian there to become invisible and basically just haunt her and just create chaos in her life and not let her be. It was a very interesting just kind of physical manifestation of like abuse, gaslighting, and all these other things, like emotional manipulation.
Yeah, it was a good take on it.
Like it did it all very, very well, and I think the cast was like very well chosen for those roles. Like everybody worked for me.
There's one that didn't work for me.
Who?
Fucking Adrian.
Oh,
like when we finally meet him, I'm just like, you're not holding the weight that I need for this character, dude.
It's just because he's not in it enough, is the thing. Like,
maybe. But like the one scene that you get with him, like I just don't think he was skilled enough to play because he's gaslighting her still, acting like, I don't know what you're talking about. I was in the closet this whole time. Spoilers. But like for some reason he didn't sell that scene hard enough for me, where I was just like, oh god, this guy is like out there. Like I don't know, but yeah. Otherwise, the movie was very effective.
Yeah, I guess he could have sold that a little more, because at the end you're like, wait, was he in the right? Was he in the wrong? Like it kind of unmoors you a little bit, and you get gaslit in that moment. I'm like, no, this is stupid. Like it was him the entire fucking time.
Yeah, like you feel stupid, but I also like that you're like, wait, is this real? What happened? Right? I love how it ends, but I won't spoil that.
But some really good scares, some really good tense moments, but between Elizabeth Moss's character and like the family that she's staying with, and it's just a wild ride. There were so many moments that like I literally did not see coming because, well, you know, the man was invisible. You never know what's going to happen. Like that dinner scene with her sister. I was like,
that's right.
I was like, I didn't see that coming.
That one was just like, wait a second.
Yeah.
I love that, like
the way the climax like snowballs is just so insane.
If you could make your audience react the same way that your characters are reacting, you have something.
It's effective.
And I felt like it was a moment where, just like the character, you're looking at the screen going, wait, I don't understand. Oh, yeah. Like as it happens, it was really good.
Yeah, it's a very intense like meeting of like thriller and horror. Like I almost didn't want to include it on the list, but it like that movie has my respect because it did so much right.
Yeah, it's okay. So that's one of those movies that I was talking about. That's like this veers into thriller territory and less horror, but it is a situation where you're like, well, that would be horrible to be in. So yeah, I would say you lean far enough into horror to like be a thing. Now, I do want to say, I want to give a shout out to Blumhouse in specific, because they have a certain brand of low budget, high effect horror that I appreciate the fuck out of, that they've been doing, which is like, hey guys, give an auteur like a little bit of money and like have a simple concept, like is like one of their mandates for a lot of their movies. They're like, don't go too crazy with like plot threads and stuff. Have a very simple concept that everyone can chew down on and just fucking go with it. And I love Blumhouse for that. I want to see where it's almost like they're coming in trying to be like, you know, knock Lionsgate off of the fucking throne, which they should, because Lionsgate sometimes makes really shitty movies. So Blumhouse, that is definitely a Blumhouse remake. I want to see them give them all of the monster movies.
I wouldn't be mad about it,
honestly. See what they do with all of the Universal monster movies. I honestly would be interested. So yeah. What else? Throw me something new in there, man.
This is one based off of your recommendation that I thought would be just a fun one to watch, and it was. It's 2019's Crawl. Kind of fits in that genre of like horror disaster that you really love. Just an idea of like, you know, what happens if there was a Category 5 hurricane and you were trapped in your basement and there were like 20 alligators. It's insane. It's really thrilling to watch.
And it's pure Florida.
It's pure Florida. I was like, no, this happened to me like last summer.
The most Florida horror movie they've ever made. It's such a good movie. God, I love it.
I like the actual like the visual like rendering, and like I don't know how they did the alligators, if some of them were CG, some of them were like kind of like puppets or what, but like they look so believable.
There's like, a bunch of CG in the movie. But yeah, there's only like maybe a few real alligators in the movie, but they do the thing where it's like most of it they don't really show you the alligators until they go nuts on certain scenes and go like, here's 50. You know,
I don't know, I felt like that 2/3 of that movie was just like you're staring down the alligator snout like you're looking down the barrel.
Yeah, like they don't show the full fucking thing. So obviously it could have just been like a prop where it's like, here, put this in water and there you go, you have your scare.
And
right?
like every other moment it's like, how could this get worse? And it does.
Yes. See, okay, so that is a disaster horror movie through and through. It takes place during a natural event, a hurricane, and that natural event unlocks something even worse. Alligators up the ass. God damn. The director of that one, he did Hills Have Eyes remake. He also did High Tension back in the day.
Nice. Which
a lot of people love High Tension. I know. I always mention High Tension and Hills Have Eyes in the same breath.
Yeah.
And everyone goes like, don't know what High Tension is. I'm like, okay.
Well. I don't even actually know who the director is, so that's beyond me.
I forget his fucking... It's like Aja something. Yeah, I forget the name. But he's great.
Good movie. I'm glad I watched it. It definitely didn't overstay its welcome. Some of the themes were a little corny. That's the one thing that it loses points for. Where like the main character is a swimmer, and like her dad was her coach at one point, and the kind of the plot of the movie, she goes back to like her dad's house because this hurricane's coming in, and she's like, I gotta save my dad.
He's a divorced dad.
And a lot of themes is like, you gotta keep swimming, don't stop swimming. And I'm just like, are you fucking serious?
Yeah, man.
But
there's a message to that film. Gotta keep swimming and watch out for don't go to Florida.
That's
the
number
main,
2 main message.
Never go to Florida. How'd you like the lead who is going to be playing Claire Redfield in the next Resident Evil movie?
I liked her. I hadn't really seen her in anything else.
She's in Skins.
Oh.
Apparently. And she's also in the Maze Runner films. You know where they have to run from a maze?
Is it Kaya Scodelario?
It's Kaya Scodelario.
I feel like maybe I have seen her in one or 2 other things then.
Yeah, she's been in a few things.
But no, she owned that role. I think like the thing that...
I believe that she was getting bitten by alligators.
One of the most important things you can have in a horror movie is
alligators.
A good... Alligators, yes. Yeah. And a good lead. Right, like
an alligator.
I feel like if a horror movie doesn't have a good lead, half the time it just falls apart.
Yeah.
Like if I don't care about the character, I don't care about the cast. Like I'm just there to watch like spooky things happen.
That's a good question then.
Yeah.
What's a bad lead horror movie? What's the worst lead that you've seen in a horror movie? Who is awful?
I don't know. I'd have to put that on pause and come back.
Let's come back to that thought. Let's come back to that thought. I love Crawl. Crawl's so good. I got a twofer on here.
Sure.
I got a twofer on my list here. I decided to watch something called Little Monsters that apparently was like an original from Hulu, I think. I remember it getting a limited release, but it is, how would you say, I think it takes place like in New Zealand or somewhere, but it is about a like a kindergarten teacher takes her class to like a zoo or something, and a zombie outbreak occurs like on the same fucking day. And it is like over the top, like horror comedy, very much like Shaun of the Dead, with a little bit of a harder edge. Like they show titties and such and things like that. Yeah. A little bit of a harder edge. And A lot more child endangerment than I've ever seen in
a horror movie.
Yeah, more than a Spielberg film for sure. Honestly, but
I feel like you can't sell a Spielberg movie without child endangerment.
Yeah, and it's starring I butcher names. Lupita, what was her last name? Lupita, she's in Marvel.
Yeah, Lupita Nyong'o?
Yes,
Nyong'o?
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
She's the star of it. She's great in it. She commands the whole fucking movie, basically. Mm-hmm. Where her whole shtick is that she's just really trying to ensure that the kids feel safe, because her whole job is to make sure that they're safe, they get back to their parents. So she's like covered in blood half the movie, and just like trying to convince them that it's a game of some sort. Mm-hmm. And fucking Josh Gad shows up as like a washed up like a television or like a kids TV show host, and he does the whole big act thing and like, what's up kids, we're gonna have a good time,
as Josh Gad would.
Yeah, but as soon as the zombies start, he starts pulling out fucking like these little alcohol like from his jacket and just gets obliterated. He holds up into the fucking gift shop and like tries to lock out all the kids, and he's like, fuck you kids, you're gonna fucking die here today. Like, it's the funniest shit, dude. And the entire time he's just talking about, the only reason I do this role is to fuck moms, man. I just started with one.
I can't stop.
And it just kept going. I fucked so many moms across the world.
That's the thing about MILFs. Once you pop, you can't stop.
The movie is really funny, but it surprises you because there is like kind of a an emotional center to the characters, because it's about like one guy who's getting out of a breakup, and he's been like a shitlord his whole life, and he meets this character and it's just like, oh wow, she's really strong and holds her shit together. Maybe I should too. And then like slowly becomes a better character throughout this. And I'm like, yeah, man, you snuck in character development in this horror movie. Fucking love that shit.
I forgot that you had even seen that movie. And I think that was like one of the...
October 5th, according to this thread.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because you did it like the morning after you would like post about the movie you watched the night before.
Yeah, or I would do it at like 1 a.m. and be like, here's my thoughts.
Yeah, but that was one of those ones where it's like, I don't think you expected to watch it when the month started, and then did, and you were pleasantly surprised by it.
Yes, there was another zombie movie, and I think of them like together for some reason because they're both on Hulu. The Girl with All the Gifts. It's a book. Oh. I own the book. Didn't read the book because books are for losers. Remember that. And I decided to watch the movie, and it was actually a really surprising, cool take on zombie lore that is very much like The Last of Us. Oddly enough, like a fungal infection turns people into zombies. And there's a military operation, has all these kids. This is in London, by the way. Has all these kids like in this bunker classroom, and they're like hooked to their fucking chairs, like just completely like as if they're Hannibal Lecter, right? And the movie starts out and you're like, well, why? And then you find out that, oh, they're not actually like human. They are some sort of second generation fungal / human zombie thing. And if they're able to smell you, this is like a unique thing. If they're able to smell you at all, then they just become ravenous, where they start like clacking their fucking like jaw like, oh, like that, and their mouth does this like too big, like unhinged. Like, it was such a weird effect.
Yeah, like, I'm sure it was like horrifying to see though.
Yeah, to see a kid just like in a chair, and you're like, what the fuck? So that's why people have to like wear this balm on their skin to make them odorless, and that shit's like severely rationed, which is such a cool premise. But there's one girl who is like the most special of the class, because she's able to learn a little bit quicker, and she's obviously different than the rest, right? And she's kind of like the grounding for the film, and it's just it's an interesting take on that too, because she very much doesn't come from like a human background. She wasn't raised by a mom and dad. She didn't grow up with cartoons and stuff. So it's interesting seeing the movie through her eyes, where she learns a new concept about the world, kind of like Ellie in The Last of Us, but a little different, where she'll see something and just not understand the concept, and just be like, what is this? And then like one of the adults will have to explain and be like, this is an automatic machine gun, like stuff like that. And you're like, huh. Also, what was her name is in the movie doing a hard ass turn in the role? Fuck. It was Glenn Close. Glenn Close plays a military hard ass.
Wasn't expecting movie. Glenn Close to be in that movie.
Glenn Close shows up and it was just like, she's like, I will shoot a kid in the face if you look at me fucking twisted. Like the whole movie. She's great. She ends up being like such a great character in that movie too.
She's a heavyweight. She can carry her own in like any
hell yeah. Yeah.
I saw the trailer for that movie because after you mentioned it, I was just like, this definitely doesn't seem like something I would go out of my way to watch, but like the trailer looked interesting, kind of the visual aesthetic and the kind of transformation of like these mushroom creatures was very interesting to see.
Yeah, weird stuff with that too. Very interesting visuals. I do recommend it.
I like what you were talking about with like the girl with the gifts, if you will, the titular character, how like she's so like insulated by that world that she doesn't know anything new.
I don't know her. I only know the girl with all the gifts.
Oh, okay, sorry. Not the girl with partial gifts and gifts on
Get out of here, you half gifter.
But I like that Ellie approach of like where this character is born in this world, they don't know anything else, and you have to
the girl with the third of the gifts. The girl with 1 to 3 gifts.
that got me, Nick. That was really good.
Yeah.
But these characters that like don't know anything else, and their exposure to the old world is through like characters who have known it before and lost it.
It's such a cool framing.
Yeah,
honestly,
we don't get it enough.
That's why I love apocalypse fiction, man. Because people will be like, "So what is this fucking thing?" And it's like, "That's a book." You know, I love that kind of writing, right?
It's like an interesting take on like the whole fish out of water thing.
Yes, exactly. It's fish out of water, except it's like, well, it used to be a world that existed. You know, I can only describe it to you because right now it's covered in fungal.
There we go.
Sorry.
I get a 2 for you. For creeps.
You must be the girl with all the gifts.
It's me. I'm bringing the gifts. You get a gift. You get a gift. Hey, Nick, look under your chair. There's a gift. So Creeps 1 and Creep 2 are 2 movies that I watched kind of back to back.
Just call it Creeps.
Creep 1 and Creep 2.
They edit it together and call it Creeps.
That would be the master collection of it. Yeah. I watched them in one sitting because I just thought...
I did too.
You know, like I watched the first one, gotta watch the second one.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's such an interesting, I guess, genre that sort of found footage, like, I don't know what's called, like kind of found footage meets Misery in a lot of ways. You know, of a man who's like kind of calling these people, manipulating them, and then kind of just toying with them, like making them his game at the end. The initial framing of 1 was fine. I think 1 is a lesser movie to me than 2 is. It's interesting that they did so much with so little though. Like the director Patrick Bryce is like the cameraman in the movie, and then you have Mark Duplass, who's just insane. I think his initial name is Joseph, and the cameraman just goes there because he's like, okay, I have cancer, I'm kind of terminal. I want you to film this documentary of my life for my son, which is all a fucking lie. Like the whole like kind of I guess anchor for him getting Andrew, the cameraman, out there is just, it's all based on a lie. And then over time you get a sense that like this dude's a little unhinged. And just the kind of evolution of like his character, like, you know, finding out that he's a serial killer and all this other stuff. It's interesting to watch, but I think 2 makes a far more compelling case for itself.
I agree, actually. And you know what's funny about I had similar feeling. Like I watched 1 and 2 back to back. I watched 1 because it was highly recommended to me. I think Jess recommended it.
Yeah, Jess did recommend that
and
too.
I started watching 2 because I was just like, I want to see what the first act is like, and got immediately hooked where I was like, oh, I guess I'm staying up to 4 a.m. watching this because it was brilliant. And together as one piece, if you consider it one piece, it is a fucking excellent found footage film together.
Yeah.
Mark Duplass his performance is revelatory, dude, because I love the fact that, you know, he comes off as childish, right? Like I almost wanted to say stupid at first, but there's nothing stupid about that man. I think it's just that he comes off as like innocent, and that's part of his draw in, right?
He's kind of whimsical.
Yeah, people want to pity him a little because it's just like, wow, you're an adult and you say kind of silly stuff. Okay, whatever. And then he'll say something just atrociously dark, and it'll be like a little buoy in the ocean where you're just like, everything else was even keel. And then you said one thing to make me feel really uncomfortable and unsafe, but it wasn't enough. Like it's almost like gaslighting, right? It wasn't enough for you to be like, I should leave. You're just kind of like, that's weird. And even characters in the films like press him and go like, wait, what do you mean, dude? And he's just like, forget about it, you know? Because like he's affable enough for you to be like, okay, I guess I'm safe, right? You're not.
I don't know. I was to be in the original Andrew's shoes, to go to that fucking cabin house and spend the night with him, like
the bathtub scene was weird.
To have that be the start of your entire experience with this man, watching a man bathe and just be weird. No, I'm out, dude. Like, that's not for me.
Yeah. So the scene where he's like, I want the camera to pretend that it's like my future unborn son who's watching this because I died already of cancer, is so unusual. It's such a uncomfortable thing where he's like doing baby talk to the fucking, and then be like, I'm washing your hair, and it's like, this is horror ASMR is what this scene is.
It's a bummer because a lot of it didn't make me uncomfortable. A lot of it was just like, this is weird. Like, I know like there's something weird about this dude. He's probably a serial killer. And then spoilers, he becomes a serial killer. Like, that was his bent the whole time.
Yeah.
He baits people. I mean, when the main character gets the call from his sister, and he's like, she's like, you need to get out of there. Or no, what was it? He called, I guess, what was supposed to be his wife, and he finds out that it was his sister. And she's like, yeah, my brother's not well. Like, you need to go. Like, you need to get the hell out of there. And then it just kind of snowballs from there, where he's like, oh, he can't find his keys. He's stuck there. And then he eventually gets out. And then, the horror comes home with him, where like he's like sending him like videos and like teddy bears and weird shit and just stalking him at his home. I love too, though, because it's like a complete subversion of one, and it's like the escalation is like, it's immediate there. Like, the main character that Mark Duplass plays, like, he was Joseph, and then he takes the identity of the guy he killed in the first one.
Right.
He becomes Andrew. And that movie is about him just kind of like grappling with the fact that he's like having a midlife crisis as a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's killed like 39 people, and he's kind of bored of it. He doesn't know what to do with his life. He's having like an existential crisis.
Yeah, he calls it a fucking job after a while. And he's like, it just makes me so fucking sad. And it's such a real take on that.
Like, I found that arc far more fascinating than the first story. But that also, it kind of just speaks to like probably how much of a chameleon he is in each situation, where like he's probably never the same way with every person. He's very different. He changes based off of the circumstances.
Yeah, very much so. Like, you could see him. So like he gets this one person, I forget her name in part 2.
Oh, Sarah
to come on by and like film. Like, he wants to be filmed because he thinks he's gonna kill himself on camera or something, or try to do something like that. And you could tell that he's trying to do his old tricks from the first movie that he obviously used on the 39 people that he's killed before. And she's not taking to it because she is different herself, and she's still trying to decide if he's just full of shit or if he's the real deal. And the more that she's given evidence that he's the real deal, instead of being like the first character wanting to get away as fast as possible, she is more intrigued, more fascinated. Yeah. Which is such a cool bent.
Well, the reason she's there is very different, because I think she films a show. It's called like Strange and Unusual Encounters.
She has a YouTube.
It's like a YouTube thing. So like, it's like she had, I guess, like a bad season, and she's like, this is supposed to be the finale. It's supposed to be this big thing. And she knows she shouldn't be there, but she just keeps pushing it. And it's interesting to see how like she unravels his character and like does things to him that the previous character couldn't.
Yes.
Like gets at parts of his psyche, makes him emotional, makes him snap in ways that like he didn't before, because like she knows how to push his buttons.
Yeah, but
there's also a mutual respect.
That's like, I know you weren't feeling like part 1 as much, but it's like, it's a necessary film for part 2. Part 2 wouldn't have the same impact if you didn't know the events of part 1.
Exactly.
Like, it's such that's why I liked viewing it as like one continuous story.
They're complementary
because they make each other stronger. It's like, it makes me love part 1 a lot more.
I mean, you have the scene that he shows her, like the video of him, like, in the wolf mask killing the dude. Like, you would have context for like, oh yeah, this dude's a killer, he did it. But like, the fact that is the end of the first movie, and you're like, holy shit, that's kind of fucked up. And he's just showing it to her, and he's just trying to get a reaction and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And,
he likes the rise. He likes revealing himself, right? Because that's the whole thing about being a killer, right? Part of it is the show and tell. and like, just seeing him go through those motions where like his compulsions, and the fact that some of his compulsions make him vulnerable and like open. I love how that movie illustrated that, where you're just like, your greatest weakness is your greatest strength, motherfucker. And she used it against him, which I loved. Great movie.
Yeah.
Great fucking movie.
Yeah, I can't rave enough about that one, and I'm interested to see what Creep 3 is going to be.
The script is done, but I don't think they filmed anything of it. But yeah, I hope, Mark Duplass talked about like, he said on Instagram like 2 years ago that it was done. But I don't know. I mean, obviously, this shit's going to make Creep 3 a little harder. Maybe.
Of course.
Then again, you could probably make a Zoom call version of Creep.
I mean, the cast has always been small enough. They usually only
like
mainly film with 3 people, so they can make it work if they do it safely. So
for sure.
What else you got for
me?
I
got a classic on here.
Sure.
I got a couple of classics. There's 2 bangers that I've seen before. And Daniel watched both of these. One of them he watched with me. The first one being 1982's Poltergeist. I went back because I had a craving for this film because I wanted something spooky, but I wanted something that wasn't like A, a part of the Conjuring universe, or B, a paranormal activity film, which rules the roost of ghost horror these days. It feels like there isn't a whole lot of other options when it comes to like, I want ghost, man. So I was like, let me go back to the roots here. And I was shocked that this fucking, 38-year-old film?
Yeah, it came out in 82.
Holds up so hard today. And I think because there's this emotional grounding to the family and how this event doesn't tear them apart, it unifies them, which is a lot of horror movies take the opposite approach, which is when the horror starts, everyone starts backstabbing and splits apart. This movie, they only get tighter. Like this dude is the main character who was on Cheers, right? Like he's great. He's a great salesman or whatever at his job. He sells real estate. He just fucking goes like, I'm going to shut that shit down because my kids are in trouble and my wife is freaking out.
Yeah.
I'm going to go be a family man. And I really like that. You don't see that enough in like movies. I was like, shit, dude.
I think that's maybe just the kind of capstone of like 80s movies where it's like there's strong family units and stuff like that.
My dude was like, fuck capitalism. I gotta go protect my wife. Like, I love that.
I mean, at the end of the day, capitalism is what brought him his demise.
Exactly. Like, that's the funniest part of that movie, which is like, dude, capitalism made your house haunted, bitch.
You didn't move the bodies.
You moved the headstones, but you didn't move the bodies. By the way, the guy, his boss, is the boss from Return of the Living Dead, who also has like wink conversations where he's just like, they didn't move the corpses, like in that movie. It's so fucking funny. But yeah, the visual effects, some of them are like okay, others still hold up where you're like, oh wow, like toward the end of the movie, that weird gangly fucking creature that comes out of the closet.
Yeah, that white wraith.
I was like, that's a Bloodborne boss, dude.
Yeah, that thing was crazy looking.
Like, I gotta get out my fucking, like, my saw and start going at it. Jesus Christ. But, yeah, I just loved how, like, there's a lot of color to that movie. And no, Steven Spielberg didn't direct that film. In fact, I'm mentioning these 2 films are directed by Tobe Hooper. It's Poltergeist. And then we also watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, which I think is a superior film to Part 1. Only because it pulls the Evil Dead 2 maneuver of, we're just going to go zany with Part 2. And you're along for the ride, okay? Like, Part 2 is nuts. But I love Tobe Hooper's sensibility of, like, how he frames shots and how much visual information he likes to just fucking stuff onto his screen and be like, here's 5 emotions, enjoy.
It's so fascinating to, like, know that they're 2 movies from the same mind because they're so different but so similar. Like, his framing, his cinematography, like, he has a signature all over those movies. Poltergeist, I had never seen it before. That was the first time I watched it, and this is, you know, after years of watching, like, you know, haunted house shows like, you know, Haunting of Hill House and The Conjuring and all
Ghost Adventures
and all that, Paranormal Activity,
MTV's Fear,
and to know that this is like fucking
I'm not okay.
Voodoo. To know that this is like the pioneer of like movies like that in a lot of way, it must have been groundbreaking at the time. Like, I couldn't imagine seeing this movie in theaters. So much about it works, and I love the cast. Like, really sold it for me. Like, I love the parents; they're so endearing and so funny to watch together.
They're smoking weed,
where they're getting high in bed, and the fucking daughter's in the other room, like kind of communicating with the poltergeist, like none the wiser. It's just there are these so many like slice of life moments that are just so great to see, and then it collides with the horror in a way that like makes sense because you care about the family, you care about the stakes. And you want to see them get out of the situation, obviously. And it just gets more intense and more intense. I don't know why they stayed in the house, like, after it was cleaned. Like, I would have fucking booked the hell out of there. Yeah.
They were moving.
She didn't do anything to clean it. What did she do? She pushed the mom through a dimensional demon portal.
This woman,
did no cleaning.
This woman who navigated them through a fucking dimensional whirlpool was just like, this house is clean. I'm going to believe that. I'm going to be like, she knows. She knows. We're good.
She didn't do a seance. Didn't burn any sage.
Nah, dude, I'm good. Pass the weed, all right? We're gonna watch some fucking, what was a hit in 1982? I don't know. Jeopardy.
It's like the first thing she had ever done like that. Like she had dealt with like...
They packed up the whole house and they're like, hey, like, we're going to leave like tomorrow night, right? Okay, cool. Well, what's one more night? And then, of course, fucking all hell breaks loose again. Like, I love that. I love that, like, that is like the originator of the, we also have just one more thing. That movie, where it was like, oh, the plot is resolved, the monsters are done, and then suddenly it's just like, except...
You're like, we have 20 minutes left. What's going to happen?
Yeah, you're just kind of like, wait a second. Credits aren't rolling. What's going to happen?
I love it because it's just of that era of movie where there's no wasted second. Like, from the start, like, you know what you're in for. That opening scene with the daughter against, like, the TV is really creepy. And, like, you get fucking poltergeist and, like, you know, ghost-like activity within the first 10 minutes. You're like, cool, this movie is not wasting time. And I love the way that each scene, like, there's always something happening with, like, any one of the characters. It's such a masterful thing.
Yeah, they all have their own, like, situation unique to themselves, like, in the movie. And I'm just like, that's great framing.
When the son gets fucking taken up by the tree.
The tree is devoured
by a tree.
He gets fucking devoured by a tree.
This is so intense.
It's fucked up.
Like, I sat up. I was like, whoa.
That's the thing about that movie. It's like your childhood fears actually happening, right? My favorite thing is when they do we have that really like sweet scene where, you know, they're scared of the thunder and the dad comes in and like teaches them to count. It's like, hey, you can actually count how far away the storm is. And then like later on he tries to do count. Okay, one. It's like it's getting closer.
And then it just crashes through the window. It's so insane.
What a good movie. But also Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, very fucking good. I like to think because that's just like high octane fun.
Yeah.
Like throughout the whole movie. It's ridiculous because it's like it's a sequel only in that the family Sawyer is back and there is Dennis Hopper who plays the sheriff of Texas.
He's so good in that role.
And his whole thing is like, yeah, my daughter was killed by these crazies in the first movie and I've been hunting him across Texas this whole time. And like my dude has become basically like a bounty hunter. Like I don't even think he has a day job as a cop anymore, right? Like he's just a bounty hunter.
He just wears the hat.
And he's just chasing these fuckers down across Texas as they have a reign of terror on every like, you know, ramshackle town, right? Where they can get away with killing people. And they're holed up in a fucking abandoned theme park like it's Fallout.
What an interesting setting for that movie.
What a cool setting at the end where it's just like this bone palace that they've created filled with bodies that I guess they just steal from all of Texas, right? Which, by the way, is worth 38 electoral votes. Wow. Learned that today.
I learned something today.
Yeah, they took 5 of them and they put it in the Bone Palace. you gotta win Horrorland in order to flip Texas.
Or at least own one chainsaw.
At least one chainsaw, right?
As for somebody who, like, I don't love the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm a bigger fan of the remake. I know that's sacrilege. It just really worked for me.
Yeah. Like, for horror fans, yeah, the remakes are kind of divisive. Yeah.
This sequel is like night and day in the best possible way. Where like it just it ups the ante, it ups the octane. It's fucking batshit. Like everything about this movie is batshit insane. And it's
the opening car chase with the chainsaw like going through the roof is just like such an imaginative scene. I'm just like, Tom Savini must have done this. Lo and behold, Tom Savini fucking did the effects for that movie. Yeah. Original Texas Chainsaw sucks. It does. Part 2, however, is fucking balls to the walls.
Like part 1, it had dialogue that I really didn't care about, characters that I really didn't care about, and I feel like half the dialogue for the female lead was just like, I'm just gonna scream a bunch.
Yeah, I think
it lost its point to me over time.
The first one was just trying to be a snuff film, whereas other horror films were much more manufactured Hollywood affairs. That's all. Evil Dead 1 was kind of the same way. We're just like, we're gonna make you believe these kids are getting tortured in the woods, right? And then at a certain point, both directors came to the same conclusion of, I don't give a shit about doing that. I love the Three Stooges and decided to make these fucking wild sequels. I really love that. Let's see. I'm going to take a brief pause here. Hello. You still wear tidy whities. We're recording a podcast, believe it or not. How are you?
How you doing?
I appreciate you dropping by to send your love. You've given me wind to my wings.
Wind to his whities, if you will.
I'm wearing boxer briefs.
Yeah, same.
However. We're wearing the same pair.
We're each sharing the different legs.
What's Okay, there's one thing that I want to talk about in a grouping, but I don't want to get to that just yet. You can go. Give me something else, man.
I see.
I might actually get a beer while
we talked about Creeps 1 and 2.
Pause. That was good.
We talked about that. Well, we'll just entertain the chat until you come back. Guys, thank you for joining us for this very interesting, very unorthodox Save Room Halloween episode that we were supposed to do as like a traditional podcast, but we just didn't have time to sit down and do a proper thing. And I was like, Kevin, if you're doing the Kevin show, let's just do it live. We won't edit it. It'll go up raw. It'll go up gory. It'll be like fucking Eli Roth's official podcast.
It's the definition of fuck it, we'll do it live.
Exactly. It's like this, really is. This Frankencast, but like, whatever. You got to do it sometimes. We're adults.
You got to consolidate your time.
I got to wonder if he's actually going to do this pour perfectly. Don't. He's pouring off screen.
Yeah, because if we do it on screen, I'll drop it. Oh, baby.
Oh, baby.
That's a perfect pour from the gun.
It's a good head right there. I guess
I miss good head.
Same, dude. 2020, it's been shy of good head. To wrap back around to your previous question, I don't know the actress's name. From Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but you were asking me like, oh, what's a horror movie that like has a lead that you can't stand?
I don't think she was an actual actress. I think it was like a friend of Toby Hooper. Yeah. It's like, I'll fucking pay you $20 a day and get you a 6-pack, of course. You just gotta scream a lot.
Just scream a bunch.
That's okay, Toby. I like screaming around you anyway.
If you blow your vocal cords, we'll foot the bill. Don't worry.
No,
we'll call it budget.
We'll get a new girl. That's all they were back in the day. Oh man, yeah. What else did you watch, dog?
So to kind of go in alignment with my like, I watch this franchise every year. I rewatched Scream 4. Don't ask why. I'm a masochist. I hate myself. Scream 4 sucks. That's gonna be the like kind of short and long of the conversation. As somebody who, I will say, like, slasher movies are my kind of horror movie where they feel very real. They feel like not just like situational horror. It feels like a thing that could happen. Like, you know, you very well could be stalked by a serial killer. You very well could be, you know, home invaded. I think like that was one of the movies that I saw growing up that like legitimately scared me, and is the reason why I'm like always like, you know, when I come home, I check behind things. I make sure like, the windows are locked. Yeah, exactly. Just because of that fear that somebody could be in the home with me, or, you know, like just wait and fucking stab me. You know, that informed a lot of like why I'm scared of like home invasions and stuff like that to this day, because it's a very real horror. You know, like zombies aren't gonna fucking happen. Yeah, we can have fun. We can, you know, like play our fantasies about like, oh, how would you survive a zombie apocalypse? But it's like, it's never gonna happen, you know, in a similar way.
Yeah, like,
where,
you
somebody
know,
could fucking kill you.
An outbreak that takes over the globe can't actually happen. Like, that's not like
okay.
Like we,
you
like
know
our
what
best
I
scientists,
mean. You know what I mean.
Our best scientists be able to get us a vaccine right away, right? Come on.
The thing about Scream 4 that doesn't work for me, it's like I think in some ways it's better than 3. It overdoes the meta horror.
That's a tough one, right?
Like the meta horror is just like, it's too much, and so many movies had done it better by that point, where it's just like, all right, we get it, like you're gonna do fucking 5 fake openings with this fake movie in the movie. Right. A lot of the characters, like, I feel like were wasted potential. Like there's a lot of characters and actors and actresses that I really like in that movie, and I'm just like, I didn't really care for what they did with you in this one. Like Alison Brie, didn't really care for her too much.
I forgot she was in it.
Yeah, Hayden Panettiere. I think she's like the one character that I actually liked, because like she's an interesting take on like, oh, I'm a horror buff, and like, you know, I'm gonna try and survive this, and she ends up getting yoked because she trusted somebody too much.
Oh, spoilers, dude! I had that movie spooled up in my queue for tonight, man.
No, you didn't. He didn't. He can't even fake that one.
Which one had Jerry O'Connell? Was that part 2?
That was part 2.
Wasn't that they brought him out and like, my chest is all scratched?
I think he played Nev Campbell's like love interest.
Oh, okay. Make Monsters in the chat says, Kevin lies like a villain in Scream. Yeah. I would be such a good Scream villain because nobody would get me.
Yeah.
It's like playing that game Werewolf where you have to pretend you're not like on the werewolf side or a werewolf. I could do it.
I feel like I would see it coming a mile away, because you would be doing the meta shit. You would be quoting horror movies left and right.
No.
You'd be licking knives all sexily.
I mean, if you're going to go for it, you got to have fun with it, right?
Like, how do you continue, like, you know, that story of Sydney Prescott?
You don't.
And like, yeah, you don't. But I think that there's an interesting take to be had where it's like her niece is the one who ends up, like, you know, being like the one orchestrating a lot of it, because, like, you know,
oh dude, spoilers, like, for Scream 4.
It's like everyone's a 9-year-old movie.
Everyone in the chat had it.
Nobody was waiting for
queue, man.
Nobody.
What do you mean 9 years? That can't be true. That can't be true.
Sorry, Ghostface killed all of your dreams.
Damn,
that was the real killer. All
it really came out in 2011.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Okay, here's what you would have done with Scream, man. Kill Nev Campbell in part 2.
Yeah,
that is the ultimate subversion. Just kill her in the fucking opening. Then the audience would be like, what is this movie going to be about?
It's
just... And then give a good story from then. I don't give a shit about Dewey. I don't give a shit about Monica from Friends.
Yeah.
And their weird, doesn't make sense relationship, I think although they really got together in real life. So nothing really makes sense.
Like, over time, I cared about a lot of those characters way, way less. There was such a diminishing return with Dewey and fucking Gale Weathers.
Yeah, dude, because the Scream movies are straight up like VHS copies of each other.
Yeah.
And it just degrades over time.
Exactly.
Where it's like the quality goes down.
And it's just like, you know, she has plot armor every time. So it's like, okay, you know she's going to survive. But
she's coming back for the fifth one.
Yeah.
But Ghostface won't be wearing a ghost face anymore.
Interesting reinvention.
No ghost face.
I would like to see how that goes.
They're gonna kill her in the intro, just like I'm saying. I know they are.
They're gonna be mad about it.
They're gonna fucking do it, dude. They're gonna.
I would respect if they did it.
But it would be like one of the Halloweens did that to Jamie Lee Curtis. Yeah. At the beginning, it was like Michael, and then like he stabs her or whatever, and then the orchestration goes, and then nobody cares.
The bent that she's like, what the fuck is her name? Emma Roberts' character is doing it to like get revenge because like this. Fucking the celebrity of Nev Campbell has been looming over her family and everything, and like she wants to kill to become famous and like get her like spotlight. And I'm like, I feel like there was a better way you could have written that and executed it. It fell very, very flat for me by the end, but there were some good kills at least. You know. Yeah, hope
someone's watching Stab 22 in the opening.
Exactly.
Fucking yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised that they didn't just like jump the shark and it's like, oh, the new Ghostface is a YouTuber or some shit like that. Like,
they're gonna keep doing that. They're gonna keep trying to modernize it in ways where it's like the main killers in that movie were like, oh, we have our own fucking web show. We have our own like, you know, horror web show. And it's like, okay, I get you're trying to modernize it because it's like these movies are always aware of the present day. They're not period movies. They're present day movies. So
I don't know. Scream lost a lot of love with me throughout the years. I think Wes Craven's New Nightmare is as good as the concept of Scream can be, and then somebody walked in and was just like, what if you didn't do it with Freddy? And more people liked it.
Yes. I don't know. They were my movies growing up. I dressed up as Ghostface Killer so many times for Halloween. I could still smell that fake bullshit rubber.
I dressed up as him for one Halloween as well.
I think everybody did. So,
can I give you a power block?
I was gonna say, go for it.
Can I give you a power block? So I decided to jump into a horror franchise. You could even say an ARA cinematic universe. The Conjuring universe. Now, I saw the first one a couple of years back and I remember liking it. And I also watched part 2 and remember falling asleep during it. And since then, I didn't see any of the others. I didn't see Annabelle. I didn't see The Curse of La Llorona. I didn't see... there's another one in there, right? Swimming around.
There's a lot of them.
Is Tiger King a part of the Conjuring universe?
So.
There's another one.
Yeah, Don't Fuck with Cats is probably one of them.
The Nun, that's the one I'm thinking. Gotcha. So I dove into it. I watched Conjuring 2, and I had to watch it in 2 chunks because again I fell asleep like right at the fucking like hour mark because that movie's mostly boring. It's filmed really well. Don't get me wrong. I think the cast, brings what they need to, but there's just something not compelling about part 2's story whatsoever. Whereas part 1 is like, yeah, I'm on board with this. This makes sense.
Oh yeah, part 1 really worked. The families, the Warrens, all of it. Yeah. And then that's sort of like, okay, we're a family that you kind of grow to care about, and they're dealing with like a possession. Like that's interesting.
Yeah, like you could work with that, but like I get like somebody saw the potential and was like, you could sequelize this. The Warrens have so many interesting stories that they probably fucking made up entirely. By the way,
yeah.
Like made up entirely, that you could make into a movie. And then they tried it with part 2, and part 2 was like, yeah, this is fine. This works. There's a few really good shots in that film. The spindly man, what is he? The guy that like he's like this tall thing that's like I'm coming after you.
Slenderman?
Kind of. He's like a Slender Man. I think it's called the crotchety man or something like that. Whatever. And then the Valak.
Valak himself.
Valak the nun coming for that. You could tell that was like a post-production decision to be like, we don't got enough fucking ghosts in this bitch. It's called part 2. This is part 1 again. What are we doing? And somebody was just like, what if we gave Vera Farmiga like this whole situation, an antagonist? And somebody's like, yeah, sure, whatever.
Could work.
Actually, they filmed the whole movie thinking that it was going to be just like a traditional demon, like hiding in corners. And then like at very late stage, they made the decision going like, well, what if it was like a nun because Warren over here is religious and whatnot? And somebody high-fived the fuck out of James Wan.
Like, yes, we could keep these going. Could bankroll this for another 10 years.
We got this, man. You're a visionary. What are you doing later? Aquaman. And then he fucking dips out.
Dipped out on the Trident surfboard.
Peace. Backflipped out of that bitch. I trust whatever director you get. And everyone's just like,
don't call me for Resident Evil.
Who made the 9th Hellraiser? We need somebody to do Annabelle. And that's exactly what the Annabelle movies are. I didn't watch the first one. I watched... Here's how it went.
I'm gonna say something right now.
Go ahead.
Before he goes into his diatribe. I don't give a fuck about the Conjuring cinematic universe. I don't give a shit about Annabelle.
What do you mean,
I've seen Conjuring and I've seen The Nun, and The Nun sucked. And that's my hard stance on these movies. Every time he talks to me about this franchise, my eyes roll to the back of my fucking head.
Do you not fear Valak?
I don't.
Are you not afraid? Fucking movies, dude. By and large, the Conjuring movies suck. I'm gonna put that stamp right now. Those movies suck. I don't think they're god-awful. Yeah. I think they're mostly fine.
They're probably worse franchises.
Holistically, if I were to say, you give me Conjuring 1, 2, all 3 Annabelles, The Nun, and La Llorona, you make a package that if I were to bite into it, I'd be like, what the fuck? Is there dead crickets in this shit? I thought this was a fucking a bun cake.
Yeah, it tastes like a fucking rotten fruit cake.
Yeah, it's like a rotten fruit cake. Yeah. So holistically, they suck, but individually, there's some there's some darlings, right?
Sure.
I'll give it up to Conjuring 1, and I'll even give it up to La Llorona. I like that movie.
You just like Linda Cardellini.
I really like Linda Cardellini. I love her. She's great, man. She carried that whole fucking movie, dude. And there actually, it was filmed really well. It's just that everything that they decided to write on paper and film on screen was stupid. It was stupid as shit. La Llorona doesn't make any goddamn sense. What's going on, Grave? I can only the only give I can provide for those movies is how they try to connect each movie like an MCU expanded universe. It's so stupid. Yeah. It's like pulling teeth. It's like pulling teeth to connect these films.
They call it the cuckoo. It's the Conjuring cinematic universe.
Literally, there'd be like a shot at the end of like Annabelle creation, and it would be like somebody throws a fucking beer can out of their car, and the beer can lands in front of the Amityville house, and then it's suddenly connected. That is their version of like plot threading. It's so stupid.
It feels like Ryan Murphy tried to write a cinematic universe.
Let me break it down for you, okay? Sure. La Llorona, stupid as fuck, but it's like the only like really tertiary one that like nothing in that film started into the other Conjuring movies.
Okay.
It's just that a character from Annabelle 1 shows up and goes, "You got a ghost problem. All right, cut the check." And then he leaves. But so La Llorona, her whole reason for being is that she loved her husband and had 2 beautiful boys, bouncing baby boys.
La Llorona is the ghost, right?
Is the ghost. Okay. It means the weeping woman.
That's a hard one to say.
La Llorona. And one day she finds out that her husband's just, sleeping around. And it breaks her heart, obviously. Heartbreaking. So she does the only thing that a woman who's been jilted by a stupid man should do, which is drowns her children in a lake. Just drowns those kids, going like, "I'm going to take away what you love, motherfucker," and drowns her kids. And then she realized halfway through, "Oh my God, I played myself. I love these kids too." It starts fucking weeping.
Tragic irony.
Starts weeping by like, "Oh my God, how did I not know that I love the children that I birthed?" And becomes a ghost because of that.
Listen, insanity infects us all differently, right? Like, yeah. I can't imagine what she was going through, but I don't think I would ever think to get revenge by killing my kids.
You know what? What doesn't make sense there is that after realizing her mistake, she like drowns herself, right?
Of
like,
course,
okay,
you have
cool.
to at that point.
We like to call that in the business a closed loop. That's a ribbon right there. You're done. Okay, makes sense. Finale. Yeah. No, for her, she becomes a specter of murdering and drowning other people's children. I'm not kidding. What the fuck? Are you kidding me? That's like me realizing, like, oh man, I shouldn't have fucking cut off my own balls. I'm going to get revenge against other men's balls.
Yeah, exactly.
And cut off their balls through the afterlife. Like, what the fuck?
It would make more sense if she was trying to get revenge on, like, cheating husbands.
Yeah. Or she can't find her kids or something. Or have something crazy where, like, the husband did something negligent because he was cheating and the kids die because he was supposed to watch them. And so she gets revenge on other people because she can't have her own kids.
Is she anchored to, like, a specific house?
No, dude.
Oh, she's a transient spirit.
The movie can't even define if she's corporeal or like a psychic ghost, because she can do things like fucking grab your ass from 30 feet away with her mind, but she also can't like walk outside or walk inside if you put beans on the door.
Oh yeah, the bean theory.
I don't know what's going on in that movie.
There's a lot of eggs.
But it's shot well. And that's, the evil eggs. Can I give you an evil egg in these trying times? The eggs start hopping because Lala Ren is around. Anyway, overly stupid. Linda Connor Bromo, awesome. Mm-hmm. Love her. So here, let's get to the Annabelle movies.
If we must.
I didn't see Annabelle 1. Didn't need to. I'm not gonna. I did start with, for some reason, Annabelle Comes Home, which was sold as, the Conjuring movies are mixed in with Annabelle, finally. Mm-hmm. Again. Because Annabelle was in Conjuring 1. Anyway. So it's like, the movie starts with the Warrens, but here's what happens. They dip the fuck out of the story and leave their daughter alone with a babysitter in their house, where they also happen to have a den where they collect all of their haunted trophies from their random hauntings. Rather than purifying or destroying items, they're just like, the only thing we could do is keep it in our fucking basement.
Have a haunted basement with all these relics? What?
Yeah. Oh, well, their whole thing is like, well, we get a priest to come in and like bless it.
They clean it. It's fine.
What? You have like the most dangerous fucking objects like in the world, and you're just like, we're gonna go away for like a month. Hope you're okay, right? Homework's doing up. You doing homework? Okay, sweet. Bye.
Just don't stare at the doll for too long.
God damn. I want like a harder R Conjuring movies, because some of them like waver between looking like they're R but acting like they're PG-13. Mm-hmm. I want to know that the Warrens are like around the road just boning and ghosting. You know what I'm saying? Just fucking just banging it out in the back of their Camaro, and then they're like, all right, let's go solve this ghost shit. Right? That's what I want.
That's a movie I'd be into.
That's a movie.
Franchise it.
Vera Farmiga? Mm-hmm. You ever seen her in what's that one movie? The Running Man? No, not Running Man. Running Scared? Mm-mm. Oh, there's a great Cunnilingus scene starring her in it. Anyway, we won't go there, though. Maz knows what I'm talking about. We saw it. We saw it together in theaters.
It was very formative.
Anyway. Annabelle Comes Home. You have the babysitter, and then you have the babysitter's friend who decides to show up and really thinks it's, like, awesome to go into the crazy room. And at first you think, like, you're being a little shithead teenager. Mm-hmm. But in actuality, she has a dead dad. She's sad about dead dad. Makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Sad, dead dad. Now, she thinks that she can grab one of these objects and be like, Dad, like scream into a locket or something. I forget. It doesn't really matter. Okay? I'm trying to rush through.
Sure.
But anyway, this little bitch ends up unleashing Annabelle in the house, of course. But Annabelle doesn't really do anything by herself. It's actually just demons and ghosts are attracted to Annabelle. Mm-hmm. And so it's probably some other motherfucker that shows up in the middle of like the house. And there's a fucking samurai ghost. Don't even worry. What? I think there's like another weird demon. There's a bunch of objects go flying around in this movie. Anyway, no one dies. That's the most important thing. No one dies. Nothing really happens except for them having like a weird Goosebumps adventure. And I have to wonder if this movie wasn't written as like a young adult adventure that they wanted to sell to kids, because it really is like a horror movie for children that you don't want to scare too badly. It really is.
PG-13?
I think it was.
Makes sense.
Piece of shit. Anyway, I decided to watch Annabelle Creation, which is a prequel to all three Annabelle films, and I fell asleep during that movie twice. Twice. I didn't finish it. It is the goriest of the Conjuring films. Mm-hmm. There is a scene where a woman gets fucking ripped in half, and that's the first time I've seen that in any of those movies. I was like, oh shit, somebody grew some balls around here. Most of the movie's very forgettable, but there's some good shots. Apparently nope, not him. They threw him away. Sorry. La Loretta's director is going to be directing Conjuring 3. The Devil Made Me Do It.
I like that subtitle a lot. We talked about this in the car the other day, where it's like they could have just called it like "The Devil Made Me Do It."
They could have
like tying it into like the Conjuring universe at all,
or Conjuring the Devil.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, that'd be a great name. Conjuring the Devil.
That's good.
The Warren's bone in the back. And then I watched The Nun. Fell asleep during that one as well.
The Nun fucking sucks.
The Nun is probably the king of awful Conjuring films.
I have Eternal Sunshine, that movie, for my brain. It's that bad. Why
would you cast Vera Farmiga's sister to not connect her character to the Warrens at all? They looked exact. It's a clone. Yeah. They cloned the Farmigas. They made one after another. And you're telling me they're not related? I fucking hate that.
Like, what a missed opportunity.
What is wrong with you? Why couldn't you just be like, oh, she changed her name to, what was it, Elizabeth Warren? No, it was Catherine Warren? Lorraine Warren.
There we go. I'm glad you figured it out. Yeah. That was not going to help.
Elizabeth Warren is the one that faked those blood tests for that one company.
Okay.
Yeah, she might be in prison. Anyway, that's a better Conjuring film. The Conjuring. Capitalism made me do it. Anyway, overall, I will continue watching Conjuring films as they come out, despite the fact that I think holistically they suck. But they're just dumb enough for me to want to chew up like fucking like bunch of crunch in my bed. That's what it is. It's bunch of crunch in my bed. I feel sick doing it. I don't feel better for it, but I'm passing time. And that's all that matters.
It's almost like,
yeah,
Fast and the Furious or like the Resident Evil franchise.
Kinda.
Like, it's just like once you pop, you really can't give up on it because it's like, oh, I'm invested. Even though these movies suck,
it's like
I want to know where they go. I want to know how they fucking outdo themselves in this next installment.
Because you want to play the high ground, right? Let's talk about the psychosis here. You want to play the high ground and say that, like, I'm better than these movies because they're obviously stupid.
Sure.
And I could talk to my friends about they're dumb, but then somebody could be like, but you watched all of them. You committed all your time to them. And then you think at the back of your head, maybe I like them. Maybe I do like them. Oh my God.
Part of you has to like them.
Part of you has to like them. And then I think back to the moments where it's just like, man, there's this really good fucking shot that they did, right? Of like in part 2, Conjuring 2, like when the chair is rocking and like, we cut to in the scene and it's just like, oh man, it's just like at the edge of the peripheral. And I was like, that's almost filmmaking right there.
They almost had something here. This could have been a fucking shot in the Museum of Cinema. But it's the Conjuring universe.
Anyway, that's my spiel about Conjuring.
Doll horror does not like intrigue me or scare me at all.
It's Annabelle horror.
Yeah.
Because La Llorona is about making sure you get revenge against the fact that you killed your own kids. Yeah, that tracks.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
It's a really tough pill to swallow. I hope there's not a sequel to that one. I think there is. I think they're making a sequel to it. It did well. Yeah, I know.
When did it come out?
2019. It came out the same year as Annabelle Comes Home.
Oh, yeah, that was the double year.
Yeah, dude, they're trying to like do the Marvel where it's like a ghost for every season.
I can't wait for the Conjuring Phase 3.
Oh, dude, I'm so excited. I'm so excited. I hear Mark Ruffalo's coming.
Yeah, I hope they get fucking Robert De Niro. Not Robert De Niro. Fucking Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr. plays a ghost boxer who beat up his own. Oh, no, that's getting dark. Anyway, let's go. Go ahead.
I don't even know where to go from here.
I'm sorry. I had to talk
all of it.
I had to talk about The Conjuring a little bit because I devoted so much time.
I only have a handful of movies left on this list, unfortunately, because I did not keep up with watching a movie a day like you did. So I'll probably have to scatter these in between your bigger blocks. Hopefully, you have a few more to kind of throw my way.
I got some meaty ones.
I watched just out of curiosity. And Kevin he told me otherwise. He threw up all these signs. He said, no, don't do it. He tried to throw away my TV.
I did try to do that.
But I watched 2011's The Thing, starring Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
I said many times you shouldn't do that.
And it's not that it was like a complete waste of time. I just really question why like a lot of that movie existed. Because it really didn't need to be there.
Yeah.
We talk about this a lot of the time where one of the things that like resonates most about horror is the mystery of it, like not over explaining the thing, not like kind of drilling down 100 times over, like this is why this parasite thing is here. It's like the thing that makes the original thing so fascinating is like just seeing it happen, seeing it kind of infect this group of people, seeing them turn on each other, seeing it become this game of werewolf. It's fascinating to unfold, and I feel like the I don't even know what to call it, the prequel, reboot, whatever. It falls in a lot of the same steps, and it doesn't do them nearly as well, unfortunately. With those like whodunit segments. I mean, there's an interesting scene where like, you know, Mary Elizabeth Wenson's like, show me your teeth. Show me your fucking teeth. I want to see if your teeth are real.
I would do anything she asked me to.
Yeah. If she was like, open your mouth, I'd be like, yes, how wide? Do you want me to unhinge my jaw?
I'd be like, where's Ewan?
But I like this more than you did. I actually liked the visual of the monster. Granted, I didn't think it was necessary, but like the way they did it, the horror of it, to see it kind of like burst out of people's chests and fucking ambulate everywhere. It was very grotesque. Like I think they did a great job with the visual effects of it. It's all just kind of superseded by the fact that like it didn't need to exist. Like this movie didn't need to exist.
The thing that didn't need to exist. Yeah. I have a theory. It's a working theory. I don't think you should remake any John Carpenter film. I think you should just let those be. Promote them however you need to. Just re-release them or something. Don't remake them. Even as much as I enjoy Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Yeah.
If it didn't happen, I'd be A-okay. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so tough to get what works about that film and do it again. You know? And I think that's what the thing prequel boot was trying to do, but like the CG didn't work for it, and apparently that was like a decision that was made by like the Universal. They were like, no, fuck your practical effects, do like the crazy stuff, because they did do a lot of like actual practical effects that they shot and stuff. And well, it was a young director, not John fucking Carpenter going, nope, you're not gonna tell me how to do my movie. Like it was a young director that was just like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever, we'll make this happen, because it was a Hollywood reboot quill make thing, right? And I just don't think it works, right? So so Maz is saying the studio fucked it up. Maz has got some facts in here.
Yeah, this is a good point here.
Grave Gamer says, I will say my largest grievance about that movie that I think caused it to suffer immensely is in the visual effects. They started making that movie with practical effects, which were fucking amazing, like I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then to only then replace a lot of the monsters with CG overlays for what practical effects are there. And for effects previously they were planned for practical. Yeah, that was a mistake. I think there is a tangibility to the original thing. Well, one, it's a simple concept. Two, there's a tangibility to how they did the practical effects and how inoften they would lean on them. But here's what good horror movies do. If you have to show it, make sure it exceeds audiences' expectations, because the imagination is always going to be stronger, right? There's two movies that do this really well. The Thing, when you finally see The Thing, it's like, I don't know what I'm looking at.
Like you couldn't imagine that thing.
You couldn't have imagined
darkest nightmares.
Right. And that's the same for Ridley Scott's Alien.
Yeah.
It's like you get bits and pieces and your mind is spinning of like piecing together, what is this creature? It's kind of bug-like, but it's kind of like it's moving around in a way that's very feral. It's so strange. And when you finally see it, it's just like, I don't know what I'm looking at, and I'm looking straight at it, right? And then the movies after that kind of killed that, veneer, because they threw 3,000 aliens at you. But it's still, to this day, Ridley Scott calls it the dragon. Did you know that?
Really?
He refers to the alien as the dragon. He's like, yeah, it is the dragon in my cave. Yeah, his cave being the Nostromo. Very interesting the way that he thinks about that. Oh my God, we're in search of followers. How about you?
I need him now more than ever.
Got that big follows. Yo, dude, I'm gonna follow this link, bro. Thanks for giving me that, man. I want to collect all these followers, dude. And they have 0 bands. That's weird. Let's add
it up to 1.
Oh,
boom. There we go.
Oh, Make Monsters got it.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a fine movie. Like I didn't feel like I wasted my time watching it, but I just feel like it just never needed to exist. And
who's the guy in that movie? Because he's actually in this one badass movie called The Night Comes for You, I think.
Which guy? There's so many fucking guys.
Oh, no.
They're all Swedish guys.
It Comes at Night.
Yeah.
No. So he's like the only other guy that survives for most of it. The very average white man who's supposed to be a Kurt Russell alike, but he wasn't.
Okay. I mean, there's the dude who plays Vaughn from Community.
Who is Vaughn from Community?
He's in season 1. He's always got his nipples out. he's in that movie. I don't know.
No, so the guy that's obviously supposed to be like the male survivor type. Mm-hmm. He makes it to the end of the movie.
Yeah, I don't know his name.
Really? Okay.
I don't know his name.
No, but you know who I'm talking about. Oh, okay, there we go. I thought you're like Vaughn. I was like, no, not Vaughn. Okay, that's fine. You got any other bangers on there?
I have a few other ones. Let's see. I watched, I guess, to kind of do it in the same vein of like, you know, playing with your imagination and kind of like finally getting the reveal of the thing, and it sometimes exceeding your expectations because you couldn't have imagined it. I watched The Ritual based off of your recommendation.
Yes.
Which I was pretty lukewarm on. A lot of that movie was just kind of like, it was okay. You know, I again, horror is one of those things where it's like I really want to care for the cast, and like I only really gave a shit about the main character, and like kind of his psychoses through that entire process. Basically, what happens is like it's this group of friends. I think they're in Sweden. They're somewhere in Europe, and they have a friend who gets kind of just murdered during like a kind of a holdup in a convenience store, and as a result, they just kind of decide to go on this kind of like adventure hike into the great outdoors as a group to kind of like, you know, honor his memory because that's what they did together as a group of friends. And they kind of find their way into like this mystical wood that has been kind of like sacred ground for this kind of like kind of eldritch kind of god. And a lot of it, like kind of what happens over time is like, you know, they see signs of like a greater horror there. They keep ignoring it. They keep going deeper into this wood. They stay in a fucking cabin that I would have never fucking stayed in. I guess they use it as refuge, obviously, but like I would have left like a day ago. Like once I saw a fucking like antelope strewn up in the trees, I would have been like, nope, we're going back. We loved our friend, but like we can honor his memory in a different way.
Oh yeah, that'd be an easy choice for me too. I wouldn't be like, no, man, that's probably just a fluke. No, I'd be like, these are the wrong woods.
Yeah.
We're leaving.
It tries to do this interesting balance of like psychological horror because like this elder god thing, like, you know, imparts itself on everybody differently. Like they kind of have like walking and waking nightmares of like their worst horrors. That's why like the main character kind of relives that same scene over and over again where like his friend was murdered and he wasn't able to do anything about it, or like he kind of wavered and didn't do anything about it rather. I think it was fine. It kind of all coalesces into this like end scene climax where like the god is finally revealed.
It shows up.
And like I thought that was crazy. I was like, oh, holy shit. Like, you know, I was kind of getting tired of like seeing like trees rustle in the distance and like all this like kind of like random noise and guttural sounds happening. But when they finally show it to you, it's kind of gratifying. And then to see the main character kind of go toe to toe with it, I'm just like, all right, you kind of delivered with this, but everything else kind of like fell short for me. But, you know.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, you really liked it. What kind of stood out to you the most about it? Or why do you think it's kind of like stands out in your kind of bangers of horror?
The really interesting thing is it wasn't just a monster hounding them in the woods. It wasn't like a slasher. It wasn't killing them one by one, like in just kind of like, I'm going to eat you, bye.
Yeah.
It was playing on their fears. And it wasn't just like, oh, I'm going to dick around with you. It was like, no, I'm going to rip open your trauma, and that's how I butter you up for myself, because that's what this thing is. And like you get this sense that they've somehow crossed a boundary by just being there.
Yeah,
like they've crossed a god without even realizing it, which is like the worst situation to be in, right?
Oh yeah, and they come across a group of people who just worship it and they can't get out of it because like they're just entrapped by them at that point.
Yeah, I just thought it was a really solid, like, simple horror movie, because I do like simple horror. I like horror that's like, we don't need to go big with this concept. We just need core cast of characters, throw them in the fucking woods, and have something hound them. And how you make that interesting is like kind of the how do you say, the spice of the dish, which I really enjoyed about that movie. I remember just being really like enamored with it. We're just like, yeah, this one fucking works. I like that this is one of those surprises that you see on Netflix that isn't some piece of shit that was obviously made like as somebody's first like production out of college. Like it was like, no, this feels like a film and it's got a point, and it felt to me kind of like the counterpoint to Descent. It had a similar feeling of like friends together, die together kind of situation. I just really liked it.
Was that a Netflix original? I forget.
I think it was for a while. I think but it might have had a theatrical run too.
I mean, maybe I kind of did the movie disservice a little bit because I watched like the first hour of it like really late and I was kind of falling asleep and just not feeling it. And then when I watched the last 20 minutes of it the next day, I was like, oh, this is cool. So like maybe if I had seen it in a better consolidated sitting, maybe I would have enjoyed it more and more. But I just feel like some of the concepts could have landed for me a bit harder. And again, like I just didn't really care about the cast, where it's like you could have made this just about the main character, and it would have worked for me more than having it be about this group of friends.
That's fair.
Yeah, because the group of friends, they felt like super just whatever, you know.
That's fair.
But
yeah, I honestly saw it a long time ago. Yeah. I didn't get that same impression from it, but I also didn't think any of them stood out. I do just remember the lead guy being really good.
Yeah.
And there being like a glasses guy that complained a lot or something. Yeah. Makes sense.
He ends up being like dead weight that somehow like he makes it to almost the end.
Yeah, which is like, really funny.
Why are you the one who makes it to the end?
Because I love it when horror movies do that. Where it's just like, hey, the likable kid, no, you're dead.
Yeah. But
got eaten by the shark first.
That's the ritual. I would like to go back to it and maybe see it with like better eyes, and see if I kind of warm up to it a little bit more. But
yeah, you'll be fine. You probably fucking hate it. Anyway,
what do you got for me? You got like a year-long list, so
I do have a year-long list. There's some rapid fire things here. I want to talk about 2 movies that really fucking stood out for me, and they're 2 movies that I've never seen before until this month. The first one being the 2018 modern horror classic Mandy.
Oh.
Mandy was a fucking trip. And I do mean a trip. That movie is like taking bad acid.
Yeah, I hear
just running its course on you.
Like it's an acid cult diptych of a movie where it's like it's just all over the place and just really hard to digest.
It is a movie that follows its own internal logic rather than any kind of real world logic. It's one of those films where it's like none of the characters say anything that would a normal person would say. None of the situations are things that would actually fucking happen, but it all feeds this internal logic of you are watching somebody's tripped out horror mural that they drew on the side of a van before driving to a fucking Led Zeppelin concert. That's what this movie is. It is a visual flair where it's like based on, like you could tell the creator of the movie is like basically took influence from just random shit that aren't even movies. Just like random paintings and poetry and fucking little sayings that got stuck in his head. Hell, the last phrase that Nick Cage's character utters is like based off of like a poem. It's so interesting. So, and that Nick Cage as well. This is like one of the few movies where you don't feel like you're watching a Nick Cage movie, despite the fact that he is in 98% of it. Like he gets lost in the character, and the character doesn't speak very much, which is very interesting. Like it's a very emotive performance from him. Think kind of like Ryan Gosling's performance from Drive. Where like he doesn't really say that much. He just kind of does.
Yeah, he interacts with 1 or 2 characters that are like really integral to him, but for the most part he just acts.
That's kind of what happens in this movie with Nick Cage, and it's such an interesting thing. And the funniest thing about this movie is that it has like an hour-long setup, and then literally to almost as if to tell you that everything it just did, another movie would take about 20 minutes to do. It shows the title card about an hour into the movie. That's fucking good. Like what? The movie's so good though. I remember I watched it and I was just like, I remember watching it and just having like a high anxiety in my chest while watching it, but still just being like enraptured by this movie. It's amazing, but it's not something I could recommend to everyone. Like especially if somebody could bold-faced look at me in the face and be like, I love the Annabelle movies, if I show them Mandy, they'll think I'm a serial killer. Yeah, they'll think I'm fucking crazy like, or trying to harm them.
Mark Duplass, is that you in there?
Yeah, they'll be like, what the hell? Like, what are you trying to kill me? Like, that's what this movie is. It's so weird. It's so morose and it's so vibrant and so disgusting. And it does that weird, like, sex horror shit.
Oh, wow.
It's fucking nuts. Like, yeah, like Hellraiser style. It is a nuts movie. I love that movie, actually. The other movie that really impressed me that is also a weird kind of like, damn, an auteur decided to really just fuck it up, huh? Is Apostle. Came out the same year. Apostle was on Netflix. It is the director of The Raid. Like The Raid and The Raid Redemption. Both Thai films, but I think he's like from America. I forget where he's from. Yeah, it's interesting. But he brings some of his visual sensibilities to like, it's almost as if somebody asked the guy who directed The Raid to remake The Crucible. And for him, he was just like, yeah, but The Crucible is boring.
How do we up the ante?
So he ups the ante. First of all, he puts Dan Stevens in it. And I think Dan Stevens belongs in horror forever because he is like he's great in horror. He does these fucking looks where it's just like, it looks like he's seen 1,000 fucking years. Like he's just been awake for 1,000 years and just like stares into your soul.
He's taking on the collective unconscious of horror.
Yeah, look at him. I can show you. Look at this picture.
Yeah, he looks feral.
He looks fucking feral. Like he looks like he's dangerous. Like even when he's asleep.
Jesus Christ.
So he the whole plot is that there's like this kind of isolated island where like this cult lives on.
Mm.
And they have their own commune. They got their own houses, and people go out there. Like I think it's like the early 1900s, like 1910 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And this guy's sister is kidnapped because they, of course, want money to fund their operation. And he goes there, and there's something way weirder going on there, as always, right? Mm-hmm. Not to spoil too much, but it is kind of like an eldritch horror situation where it's like, oh, that's what this town's all about. This is why they sacrificed, that kind of thing. But it is wild because like this dude just ends up like there's 45 straight minutes where he's getting cut up, getting shot at, punching cultists, kicking them in the mouth, losing, like people are losing teeth. He loses fingers. There's a weird fucking pyramid head skinny man that shows up. Like it's all this like very stimulating, almost I would say Eastern kind of horror visualizations thrown into a very like Western movie. Which is just like such a weird combination, but it's cool. It's a cool movie. I recommend Apostle very much.
I'm actually really interested in checking that one out.
It's a weird one.
Because that's one that I have like no pulse for because nobody talked about it.
Yeah.
But
yeah, for some reason.
Just like hearing you talk about it and describe it like over time, it's like, yeah, it sounds like my shit.
And it's fucked up too, right? Like, you know, it follows like these little kind of like tiny stories of the characters that live on the island. And they just go through some horrible shit. And they're just like, that's life on the island, living on a cult island. It's so cool. Yeah. So those are the two movies. You got anything?
Interesting. Yeah, I got a few others. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 movies left. I think 2 of them we're going to talk about in a block together. 2 of them I'm going to talk about a block separately.
I like it.
I just want to give a quick mention to this one. We saw this out of season. I think we saw it in September when it came to Netflix. But The Babysitter Part 2, Killer Queen. Fucking high marks. High recommendation.
High recommendation. Not as good as Part 1. Not as good as Part 1.
Different beast, tries to subvert it in interesting ways, and the cast it's just fun. It's a fun wild ride, and the ending is just like, okay, like I see you guys try to do a very like bring it home in a heartfelt way, and I respect like what they try to do with it.
I liked it. It was fun.
Just a fun fucking movie. Like I like that branding of like horror meets comedy a lot. I had actually just seen the first Babysitter like probably a month previously, so that was still fresh for me. Yeah, I didn't see it when it came out originally. Yeah, I remember I did a back-to-back. I watched that and I watched Ready or Not, I think in the same night. Yeah.
Good back-to-back, because Ready or Not is like the same tone.
Yeah.
If I didn't already see that movie, that would have been a movie I recommend for Halloween watching.
Yeah. Well, it's also Samara Weaving. She's in both of those.
Yes, she's in both.
I like
she's
her a lot.
Great.
Yeah, she's really good. Definitely can carry a movie, but technically wasn't part of our 31 days of watching, but had to shout it out because it's so cool.
Yep.
We'll talk about these kind of together. We've been doing these like random pockets of watch alongs together, whether through like Save Room Saturdays with you guys or like, you know, for the Kevin show. We ended up watching 30 Days of Night together. Yeah. The Josh Hartnett classic.
Yeah.
And man, that movie holds up like over time. Like such a very, very cool like vampire movie.
I forgot how slow burn the buildup was in that movie. It's like a good 35 minutes before shit even happens. Yep. It's so good.
And just the setting of it being like in Alaska during that time of year, fucking cool. Like I can think of few like horror settings that are as like inspired as that. Just super, super dope. Great cast.
Josh Hartnett.
Yeah, the vampires are really disgusting and like...
What heartthrob.
He is the heartthrob.
What a heartthrob.
He fucking injects himself in the end to become this superhuman to stop them.
Does.
What a hero.
No god.
No good. What are they Russian vampires? I don't even know.
Oh, I forgot. I looked it up.
Slavic, I think.
Yeah, they're like Slavic.
Yeah, because they have like this guttural like Slavic thing that they like kind of do.
Yeah, they're not actually speaking a language, I found out. It's like weird random phrases, but it's like not an actual language. Yeah, but it's cool.
Every time
alien vampires.
Yeah.
Like just like they're not like any interpretation of vampires I've seen before because they're clever, but they're animalistic in a way, but not in like a corny way. They really are just like, you are a different species. Like that cannot relate to people even if you dress like us.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah, they try and like do that thing where it's like, okay, we're gonna like seat ourselves and look normal, but They're still abominations. And the way they work together as like a hive mind is like really, really cool.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to go back and like read the graphic novels because I hear they're really fucking good.
They are. Yeah, the first two are very good. First two arcs.
Did they ever make like a follow-up movie, or was that always like...
They did.
Okay.
It sucked, apparently. It was like a direct-to-DVD sequel where they recasted everyone.
Oh, what a
Except
shame.
They had a flashback to Josh Hartnett, I think. Yeah.
Just sitting on the horizon.
It wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it.
31 Days of Night. No, it can't be the name of it. But it also could be the name of it.
It's something like Blood Harvest or some shit. I don't know. Blood Down. Blood Hootenanny.
Blood Down. I think we watched that movie. Fuck, 31 Jump Street. I think we watched that movie back to back with Terminator in the same night, so that was like a fucking double feature. Yeah. We're not going to talk about Terminator though.
Terminator's awesome.
Terminator fucking slaps if you haven't seen it.
So good.
We also watched 1987's Hellraiser together.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, okay.
The Clive Barker sex crazed classic.
That movie's wet.
It's so wet, so...
You could smell that movie.
Palpable and everything it is. It has a throbbing and thrumming to it that like you feel.
That movie gives off humidity.
Yeah.
It's such a strange but interesting... The practical effects are brilliant, but they're disgusting. When Frank, horny Frank, breaks out of hell and comes back as like a fucking... I'm a slippery skeleton man. And he goes to his mistress.
And I need you to kill for me. I need blood. And she does it.
My favorite thing is that they have...
It's blood for love.
They have this guy who looks like a fucking Freddie Mercury type. Like sexy ass motherfucker wearing eyeliner who's human Frank.
Yeah.
And like, bangs out this chick. And like they recast him completely when he becomes like Demon Frank. So he's just like, I need blood. Like the whole time you're like, bring back that sexy guy.
Yeah, I want to see that sexy dude.
You know who should... Oh, dude. You know who should be Frank in the remake that I'm going to direct? Dan Stevens.
God damn it.
Dan Stevens should be horny because he's sexy, but he could also do the crazy.
Okay.
I need it.
Sexy.
I need it. Yeah, what's a big takeaway from you besides horny from watching that movie?
You said sexy, and for some reason I'm stuck on John Hamm. Like I want to see
John Hamm
as Frank, yeah.
Yeah.
My takeaway from that movie is that time and memory is a very interesting thing. Because like I feel like I misremembered a lot of that movie, or maybe it's just I had such a collective memory of all these other Hellraiser movies where the Cenobites and Pinhead were more in the foreground, and I didn't realize this was more of like a forbidden sex love like movie about this woman who's just trying to bring her love back to life, and that the Cenobites are just kind of set dressing. Like, they're not in the foreground in the same way.
So I had the same thought because I remember like watching Hellraiser as a kid and thinking like, yeah, the antagonists are like these demon creatures, right? And I watched it like, Make Monsters has a casting choice. Oscar Isaac to play Frank. He wins.
I like that a lot.
I like that a lot. I watched it again and I had the same thought where I was just like, oh, they show up for like fucking 5 minutes, right? They're not the point.
Yeah.
And I like that about the movie. They're not the point. We had this discussion with Nick too, because like he watched it when we did the watch along, and he was like, well, Hollywood was the one that was just like, you need to make the Cenobites like the villains. You need to make them like the slashers. They're gonna be the new Jason Voorhees. And it's like, no, I don't know. It's hard to say if that worked out or not, because they had like at least 2 more theatrical Hellraisers, the part 2 and part 3, and then the rest were like dumped into a blockbuster.
Yeah.
Like immediately. Like if somebody wrote Hellraiser on paper, it would immediately be a VHS.
Yeah.
Like that's what it was for a decade. Yeah.
I feel like it became annualized like Fast and the Furious. It's like to hell, to Razor.
All with stupid ideas.
The hell in the Razor.
Like one of them was like a flashback movie.
Well, but what are you gonna do though? Are you gonna have a movie centered around this like mystical sex cube?
They did it all. They did it where like there was a movie where it's like, hey, how did Pinhead become Pinhead?
Yeah.
Which is normal British guy decided to fucking play with the box and became a sex demon. Okay. Like, yeah, that's what happened. They had another one where it was like, oh, hey, there's a lineage of a family that's linked to the Pandora's box. And like, it's like a flashback through their history as if it was like Eternal Darkness, where you go back and see like each of their little vignettes leading up to there's literally one ancestor in space with the fucking box, dude. God. That's called Hellraiser Bloodlines. I'm not kidding, dude. They did everything with that franchise. I'm sure there's a found footage one. I'm sure.
I'd actually watch that.
I would too, actually. I'm really sold on an idea. I want to see Frank having sex found footage.
Get the director of Creep to do it. Yeah, it was it just, that's an interesting era of horror where like there's just so much like interesting like practical effects and like visual storytelling that they decided to do, and just like the involvement like with the daughter and kind of how like she has to deal with it as a result. Like I just found all of like her kind of downfall very interesting as well.
But she wasn't the protagonist.
She wasn't the protagonist.
What was her name? The cheating Frank lover.
Oh yeah, I wasn't even thinking of her. We'll call her Ellen. And then the daughter Jessica.
I don't think it was Ellen.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Actually, it was Kirsty was the daughter.
Oh, Kirsty was the daughter.
Yeah, okay. Kirsty was the daughter.
We have no way to fact check this. We're not online. We have no way to look it up. None. So, I mean, that gets... I'd give it 2 pins way up. You know?
Out of what? Because he has like 50 pins.
Oh, yeah, okay. Well, 2, fine. I'll give it 50 pins up. Jeez.
Can I do some quick shout outs?
Go for it.
To shit that I saw?
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of The Curse of Law? No, I'm kidding. The Host, 2007, the director of Parasite.
Fuck, I'm pissed I didn't see that.
Fuck, you have every opportunity.
Yeah.
Like, it is an amazing movie, one of the best monster movies I've ever seen. Ever in my life. I would, you know, it's a good back-to-back if you really want to, like, fucking have some wine and cheese. Fucking The Host, and then Shin Godzilla.
Ooh.
Godzilla.
It makes me almost want to see... What's that director's name? I forget.
I forget too. Oh, sorry. It's Bong Joon-ho.
It almost like... I want to see like Bong Joon-ho do like, I don't know, like a Parasite Eve adaptation or just something like that. Just because of like his idea of like monster movies and horror. Like it just is such an interesting take on things.
Not a bad idea, Daniel.
Not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea.
The Host
fucking love that.
Is the most.
The Host is the most indeed, dude.
I
brilliant movie.
My thing is like I didn't know it was a monster movie for the longest time. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that it was a family movie.
Yeah.
Until I watched it. Yeah, I watched it when it came out. I was 17 when it came out.
Oh wow.
Yeah. But another quick shout out. Tragedy Girls came out in 2017. Comedy horror. It's a slasher movie where the protagonists are the slashers.
Okay, that's fun.
So it's fun. It has the same kind of vibe, like think Babysitter, but not as like without the flourish, like the visual flourish. A little more simply shot, but it's fun. There's a lot of good cameos in the movie. There's really inventive kills, and you're rooting for the girls the entire time because it's just like, yeah, they're
like,
killing,
go for it.
Their killing makes them closer. You know?
I like that.
It's a fun movie. I actually recommend Tragedy Girls.
I like interesting bents on like kind of slasher movies like that, and like especially if the kills are interesting. Fucking go for it.
I got another. Actually, I don't have too many more on my list. To be honest with you,
I have 2 more.
I got I saw Bats. Bats fucking sucks.
Which was this childhood movie that you had archived in your brain that like you just needed to watch?
Because I watched it a bunch as a kid, and I watched it and I was like, oh, this is a piece of shit. Okay, cool. Good to know.
You did tell me there were these really like strung out steroidal bats though.
Yeah, look how strong that bat is.
My fucking,
got a picture of the
looks
bat
like
on
it
my
could
phone.
lift a Chevy.
Yeah, they're so strong.
So ugly.
These bats like do like weightlifting, and all they do is glower at Lou Diamond Phillips the entire time. And like they're smart bats. They try to trap the bats at a certain point, and the bats are just like, "Fuck you." It's fucking great, dude.
The buff bats are the only good.
Yeah, the buff bats are the funniest shit, and they're like the most rubbery bats. They obviously don't move, like because you just flap them.
Yeah,
I love it. The other movie that was a piece of shit that I saw, Sinister 2.
Oh wow,
I liked Sinister 1. Sinister 1 is good.
Never seen it.
You know what, that director, Scott Derrickson, went on to do Doctor fucking Strange.
Really?
Yeah, he went from Sinister to Doctor Strange.
Huh.
I don't know who directed Sinister 2, and I'm not going to look it up because I pity them. But it is a good pulse check on where Shannon Sossaman is these days. The star of such films as The Rules of Engagement.
Oh my god. That was the Shannon Sossaman movie, yeah.
Yeah. And she's looking good. Like, she's looking good.
She's a timeless beauty.
She doesn't do anything in the role. Like, she shows up. There's a little cute romance with the dumb cop who survives part 1 and apparently is the star of part 2. What a choice. But yeah, there's not much to say. And then also I watched all of season 3 of Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Oh.
And I had a very good time, but I'm very sad that's the ending of that series.
Oh, really?
They canceled it.
That's a bummer.
Yeah, Starz said, "Fuck this army of shit.
Fuck you, Bruce Campbell.
Stupid shit."
As somebody who grew up with those movies and like really, I feel like a lot of those Raimi movies, Bruce Campbell, like that melded a lot of who you are today as like a watcher in terms of like certain movies or like your personality even. do you feel like the series was kind of a good way to like kind of return to like that universe?
Oh, definitely. And it also made me want to watch. So there was one thing that I did do that, like, instead of watching Army of Darkness, because I watched it last Halloween, I watched the behind the scenes of Army of Darkness. Huh. And it was one of the most fascinating. I couldn't stop watching it. It's like a new documentary too. I found it on YouTube because like they reference like the new Evil Dead film and they reference like Ash versus Evil Dead. But you know, the cast is so far removed and the crew members are so far removed from the movie that they just fucking tell you like it is. One dude was just like, yeah, that was like the worst shoot of my life. Like Bruce Campbell says, like, I watch Army of Darkness and I get fucking tired. He's like, I did so many stunts in that, and you know, I did a lot of the stunts myself, which is not common for a Hollywood production. And he says that is the only studio-backed movie that he's ever starred in his life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was like, yep, that's a true fact to this day. That's the only studio production. Evil Dead 1, 2, no studio, anything. All indie movies. Yep.
Interesting.
And the horror of making that film where they started out calling it Evil Dead 3, and then they're like, well, it's funnier to call it the Medieval Dead because it makes sense. Yeah. And then Universal got a hold of the cut after everything was said and done and was just like, we fucking hate whatever this is. So don't call it Evil Dead. We don't care about that name. They're like, what the fuck? It's a sequel though. We reference 1 and 2. And they're like, nah, who gives a shit? Call it Army of Darkness. And they recut it. They cut out the morose ending and made them do like a fucking fun ending. And like Bruce Campbell was just like, you fucking knuckleheads. The movie's called Army of Darkness and you want a feel good ending? What is wrong with you? Weird. But yeah, the movie's so obscure and different because it's like an adventure comedy. It's not a horror movie. There's very little horror in the movie. In fact, they had to do reshoots to add horror into the movie because it just wasn't a horror movie. They watch it and they're like, yeah, this is damn, this is like Jason and the Argonauts, actually.
Yeah, it's like a fantasy epic in a lot of ways.
Shit. Well, okay. I hope fans won't hate it, but actually, fans love it. I love it. I have no problem with Evil Dead 1, complete grindhouse horror movie. Evil Dead 2, a horror comedy. Evil Dead 3, an action adventure. I have no problem. I love it. I love watching them. That was a good cap to the Halloween season. Just seeing how one of my favorite movies of all time was made.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that.
What do you got for me?
You didn't get to watch the remake again, did you?
No, I didn't watch it again.
It's a bummer.
It's a good movie.
It's a really good movie.
It's a good movie, but you know, I was going for that nostalgia, right?
Yeah.
Because the remake doesn't have Bruce. It doesn't have the comedy. It's not a comedy.
It's hard. Like, that's a hard movie to watch. It actually makes me uncomfortable to watch in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Just because, like, the portrayal of, like, drug abuse and addiction and everything, and just, like, the visual horror is disgusting.
Yeah, I have to wonder what Evil Dead Rise is going to be like. Like, what tone are they going for with that movie? Because it sounds like a great concept.
Yeah.
It's Evil Dead in a high-rise instead of a cabin. That is the entire concept. And it's got a different female protagonist. I don't know if they're going to go with, like, let's do Evil Dead 2, where it's funny, or is this going to be some sort of, like, commentary on, Rent?
Yeah.
Like, who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. I didn't even actually know they were making that until you mentioned it, like, a few days ago. So,
I'm very
good stuff. My last two on here are kind of, like, in similar veins. I always kind of mention them in the same breath, even though, like, they're not the same type of movie, but like they're almost opposites in a lot of ways. The first one is 2016's Hush, which I fucking love.
Yes.
Like that's one of those movies that feeds into my love for like home invasion, cat and mouse type movies. Like serial
I love
killers.
that you said movies at the end of it. It really feeds into my love of just home invasion.
Yeah, movies.
Period.
It wasn't an afterthought.
No.
It was just there.
Period.
I'm fucking tired, man. It's been a long day.
I love home invasion.
Period. But I guess on my initial watch, this always happens to me where like I will watch a thing, be totally oblivious to like the cast, director, all that, and then learn of a body of work and then come back to it and realize, oh, that's that actor. Oh, that's that person. So it's directed by Mike Flanagan, fucking, Haunting of Hill House,
Dr.
Blind
Sleep.
Manor, all that. And it stars Kate Spiegel, who is also in both those series and is actually married to Mike Flanagan. I didn't realize that they had actually like written the script together.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's really, really cool. Kate Spiegel's amazing in that movie. Like, she does so much with so little, and like she doesn't talk the entire movie because like she's deaf. She's basically a mute as well, and a lot of like her performance is like just emoting and physical performance, and she just owns every bit of that role. And I love these movies because what's in the same vein of it? You're Next.
You're Next. Adam Wingard.
Yeah, You're Next is in that same vein of like, yes, these people are coming to get us, but the main character is as smart and is usually one step ahead, or at least on the same track as the person pursuing them. Very, very smart movie. Some really good kind of like climactic moments, very tense, like through and through. Yeah, every time I go back to watch it, it's a treat because I feel like it's one of those gems of a movie that like got missed, unfortunately.
Yeah, I feel like not enough people talk about it, right? Like Hush is amazing. I remember watching it I think I watched it at like the moment it came onto Netflix, right? It's so good.
It's shot really well, and like the fact that it takes place in one location and they do so much with it is like really interesting.
It feels like a Blumhouse horror movie, where it's like, yeah, we're just gonna give you one location. I love the fact that like it's just a guy.
Yeah,
it's just a guy that's just like, yeah, I love torturing you. That's it. And like he very like plainly like reveals his intentions and talks to her and goads her and stuff. And it's worse because you're just like, you're like a normal person.
Yeah.
And you're just really into killing people.
Yeah. And I
very much like the Mark Duplass character, which is so interesting.
And I think like her being deaf and mute feeds into his intrigue a little bit and allows him to like kind of bring his guard down.
Yeah, right. He doesn't know that, right? Yeah. He figures it out at a certain point where he's just like
he's like studying her through like the glass and just watching her interact and just realizes that over time that like, yeah, she doesn't know I'm here.
Yeah. Doesn't he like test something where he just like hits a window real quick?
Yeah, he's like hitting the window with like her friend's head at first. Yeah, and then like the knife and a few other things, and like
I want to rewatch it.
Then he gets into the house and he's taking pictures of her.
I forgot about that.
It's so well done, and it's just a case of like two actors acting off of each other in very fascinating ways.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. And then I forgot how it ended. But I love it. Kate Spiegel's probably one of the better actresses of our generation that like just kind of goes very, underspoken. And I think Hill House brought her into the forefront in a lot of cool ways as like Theo. Like she's fucking amazing in that role. So great movie that I almost wasn't going to rewatch it, but I think I had a night where I just like, I wanted to like kind of lay down and watch something familiar, and that was easy. And then the last movie I watched of the month was Don't Breathe, which is kind of in the same vein because it's like, okay, Hush, deaf, mute, Don't Breathe, dude's blind. So they always kind of get like in the same vein for me. But Don't Breathe is a wild, wicked, sick ride, of these bank robber type people. Like I don't know what to call them. Thieves, heistmen, thievers who just like find a hit on a house where like, oh, this dude's got millions of dollars. We're going to go hit up his house. Oh, he's blind. This is going to be really easy, And they up the stakes on themselves because like the main character is like, well, one of the main characters, there's three of them. He's like, we never hit a house if there's somebody in it, but they give themselves leeway because they're like, well, the dude's blind. So like, what's the risk going to be? And this dude's like ex-military, super fucking strong, like knows the house better than they do, obviously, because he's blind. He knows every path, every treading. And the way it reveals its hand is like super interesting because it's like, they think they're going to go in for a really simple hit. They're going to get the money, but like very quickly they're becoming hunted and they're trapped in that house with him. And when you find out his reveal of like, oh, he has his own dark secret in the basement. Like he's got his
own secret basement.
I really don't want to spoil this because I think it's probably one of the more interesting reveals in a movie. And that part always blows my mind. And it has probably one of the more horrifying scenes that I could think of in a movie because there's nothing more like horrifying than like, I guess, sexual violence, where the main antagonist like comes at the main female character with like a turkey baster and like is like gonna basically inseminate her against her will, and it's like so horrifying to like think that could happen, or just like to see how like helpless she is in the situation. So really, really well done. I think like the cinematography is tops. It's got some really great sound design, and like it does a real good job at like shifting the perspective of like making you feel like him at times, making you feel like them. Really well done.
So a few things to note about this film. One, it is directed by Fede Alvarez, who directed the Evil Dead remake. Sam Raimi produced both films, Don't Breathe and the Evil Dead remake, of course. The sequel, which is coming out next year, has a different concept, and it's a really cool concept. In Don't Breathe 2, the blind man has been hiding out for years in an isolated cabin and has taken in and raised a young girl orphaned from a house fire.
Oh, God.
Their quiet existence is shattered when a group of kidnappers show up and take the girl, forcing the blind man to leave his safe haven to save her.
Interesting.
That's a cool concept, actually.
It's like Taken.
Yeah, different director, though.
Huh.
Different director, but the original director wrote the script.
I was kind of like interested when you told me that there was going to be a sequel. I was like, wait, how did the first movie even end? Like, I literally forgot because it had been so long since I had seen it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, they could make a sequel based off of like either the main female protagonist or like the antagonist.
Yeah, very easily, but it doesn't sound like she's back. Yeah.
She was good. One of those movies where like you don't really know who to root for because nobody's really good. Like it's like the cast is very nuanced. Like that, none of them are good people.
Right.
They all have a bad backstory, but you kind of want her to survive out of all of them because like she has something to actually like kind of persevere and live for, and like the shape of her sister and like kind of getting out of their shitty situation. So
the movie oddly like reminds me of Wes Craven's The People Under the Stairs. It has a very similar vibe of the main characters are breaking into a home and stumble upon a situation that's just like way above their heads, right? It has a very similar vibe in that way. I think that's a good pairing if you were to watch those movies together. Jordan Peele is remaking The People Under the Stairs.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah. But yeah, the fucking Don't Breathe is amazing. I want the sequel. I love that director because I think he's got a good mind for horror.
Oh yeah.
Very good mind for horror. Because like Don't Breathe is a horror movie, but it could be classified as a thriller.
Yeah.
Right? But it's just like the way it's shot, the way that it uses shadows, the way the story plays out is just like, this is horror through and through. But yeah. Don't Breathe. Very good movie. Very good movie.
I tend to like movies like that meeting of thriller and horror.
Yeah.
Like that's why like Invisible Man, like, I could have took it off the list, but I'm like, no, it's a horror movie.
It's horror because it's like the concept is like the unseen is what scares us the most, right? It's a scary concept, right? I would agree that it's probably closer in horror on the spectrum than anything else, but yeah, interesting.
You got anything else?
No, man.
Was that it?
That's it.
Oh, wow.
I ran through most of the ones that stood out to me. I don't think I skipped anything really.
Was there anything this month that you had wanted to watch that just didn't make the list for whatever reason? Because I feel like you were struggling some nights to watch, like find a thing to watch, like scraping through Amazon, scraping through Hulu.
Yeah, that's the funny thing.
Yeah.
Just because it's like I was relying on streaming services. I only rented a handful of titles. Like I rented Mandy. I thought about getting Shudder, but they don't have like. I wish Shudder had like a PS4 app. Like you have to get it through Amazon, and it was just like, I don't want to double up on some weird shit. Because the UI on Amazon Prime is dog shit.
Sucks.
Fucking is garbage, and also the visual quality is garbage as well. Why do you think I pay for that fucking HD service on Netflix, right? So, yeah, there's probably like a few classic movies that I wanted to go back to. Like Army of Darkness was one that I kind of toyed with. Evil Dead was one. I had it in my mind that I wanted to watch Halloween 4 and 5 because they stand out as like these middle ground Halloween films that aren't from John Carpenter but aren't the disposable terrible sequels like 6 and 7 and H2O or whatever the fuck.
Yeah,
it's like a very certain era where they're like, hey, we're bringing back Michael, we think we have a concept that works, Donald Pleasance is here, and there's like a continuity between these two films because they were basically shot like a year apart and almost released a year apart. And they tell this story about like, hey, what if Jamie, or not Jamie, what was her name in the Lori? Mm-hmm. Lori just fucking died, or disappeared or something. But she has a niece, is basically what it is. And the niece, played by Danielle Harris, she actually shows up in the Halloween remakes 1 and 2.
Oh.
She is the friend of Laurie Strode, who survives part 1 but gets stabbed to death in part 2.
Gotcha.
Yes. Part 2, the much grimier, unfriendly.
That movie is hard. Vision. Yeah.
That's a hard ass movie to watch.
I mean, they both are. I mean, it's coming from the fucking mind of Rob Zombie.
Yeah. Rob Zombie.
And I do like his take on a Halloween, like the first one, because it's really fresh. And I think a lot of people maybe would fight me against the fact that, like, maybe diving too deep into Michael's psyche is overdoing it. Like, where's the mystery? Where's the mask? But like, I like that. I like that they peel back the layers and give it more depth. And that movie does interesting things. It's just part 2 doesn't kind of complete the package in a way that I was hoping for. It starts strong, but it ends in this weird, like, we're gonna do weird supernatural stuff.
You could tell that Rob Zombie just like got disinterested in making a Halloween movie during that, and was just like, I'd rather make a serial killer movie, is basically what it is. And I think there's something about Michael Myers as a character that it isn't a serial killer. He is a almost supernatural slasher without supernatural abilities. It's a weird thing, but it's like, he is enigmatic and there isn't much MO to him, right? Like, he just kills. He is a machine. And that's what makes him really scary. And I think the new Halloween 2018, got that. Yeah. Understood that it was just like, this is a thing. Yeah. This is like a fucking shark moving through the ocean.
Yeah. I think they nailed that essence of like, this is the shape, it's foreboding, it's never going to stop until it makes its mark. And even after it does, it's going to keep going on to the next thing.
Yeah. Whereas Rob Zombie very much was just like, what is the pathos of a killer?
We got to peel him back like an onion. We got to see him making masks in his like,
I need to see Michael making ass.
Making all the ass.
You better be making ass in there. But yeah.
Mikey, you making ass in there?
That was about it. Like, I still have every opportunity. Like November, you're not going to stop me from watching horror movies.
We're good until Thanksgiving.
We're good until Thanksgiving, and then you can't watch horror anymore. Yeah. Never again.
The only thing that I had really wanted to see that I was bummed out that I didn't catch was the remake of Dawn of the Dead.
Right. Yeah. Good one.
Really good. I wanted to see that.
Good
and God, what's the movie called? Fuck.
Dawn of the Dead 2.
No.
Even Donner.
I can't remember the name of them.
Even Dawn.
They're zombie movies. There's 2 of them.
2 of them. 28 Days Later?
There we go. Thank you.
And then 28
I wanted to
later?
see 28 Days Later again.
Gotcha.
Just kind of ride that same high of like zombie movies.
That's a very good one.
I guess virus movies.
Yeah, whatever you want. It's a zombie movie. We don't need to have this fight with people. Or
no, not at all.
They're not actually zombies. Zombies aren't actual.
Yeah. Listen, if it looks like a zombie and it acts like a zombie, probably a fucking zombie.
It's probably a fucking zombie, dude. Probably zombie.
But for as much as I feel like this year had the wind kind of knocked out of it in this season, like,
why, what happened?
It didn't feel like Halloween. Like, it was kind of like, it was lackluster in a lot of ways.
What?
But
why?
we did our best to kind of stuff it with scary content. So like, kudos to us.
I mean, this year has enough scary content as is.
Yeah. I mean, just look at the election results. Look at Trump's Twitter.
Yeah,
that's modern horror.
I don't even know where we're at.
Yeah.
I don't even know where we're at with the election right now. Hang on, let's see what's going on here. And where was that?
Still at that standstill?
Still at that standstill.
A lot of votes. Got to keep counting them.
Nevada, taking time. Nevada. A lot of Nevada to count, you know what I'm saying?
A lot of Nevada.
Oh,
man. Well, we didn't do the spiel at the beginning of this episode because we just kind of jumped right into it. But if you guys don't know, we're the Save Room. You can find us over at soundcloud.com/SaveRoomShow, Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, Google Play, everywhere. You're obviously on Kevin's Twitch, twitch.tv/TheRedHerb.
Yeah.
You can find me over at twitch.tv/Dungeons and Daniels someday. I don't know. Yeah. I let Nick take the mantle for a little bit there. He's the new Dungeons and Daniels. Yeah, I can't be him. He's a wonder kid.
Right, he's a wonder kid.
And you can find us on Twitter at Save Room Show. Let us know what your spooky movies were.
Indeed. But don't. Well, all right. I think that's the show, y'all.
Yeah. I mean, we could cap the show right here, and if you want to say anything
it's done.